Chapter 262. Sasuke glanced at Naruto behind him and found that Naruto seemed to have lost consciousness. His whole body was paralyzed on the ground. His closed eyes and slightly frowned eyebrows seemed to tell Sasuke that Naruto was suffering great pain at the moment. Damn it! Could it be that he was going to watch someone close to him die in front of him again? Sasuke asked himself, and a huge anger surged in his heart, and the Sharingan in his eyes also quickly rotated. On the one hand, Kekkai Genkai does need to rely on the ninja's own chakra, but on the other hand, when the holder of Kekkai Genkai is agitated, the power hidden in the blood will also feed back to the user at the right time. Sasuke is now in such a state, as long as he can hold on long enough, Kakashi-sensei will definitely be able to defeat the mist shinobi called Zabuza and rescue him and Naruto. Sasuke made such a decision in his heart, and the long sword in his hand was also quickly displayed. Many of the parts that were originally obscure when he practiced swordsmanship became smooth at this moment. There is a great horror between life and death, but there is also a great opportunity between life and death. As long as Sasuke succeeds this time, then Sasuke's strength will definitely increase by leaps and bounds to a certain extent. Just when Sasuke was trying his best to block the icicles shooting towards him, Haku's figure stopped in the ice wall formed by the magic mirror's ice crystal. The exposed eyes were staring at Sasuke's back at this moment, as if he saw something particularly terrifying. Even his ninjutsu was temporarily suspended because of the interruption of chakra. Kakashi, who was commanding his ninja dog to attack Zabuza, suddenly became dazed. This chakra. Naruto, it turns out that you've already reached this point. This familiar and frightening chakra aura was the aura of Nine Tails who attacked Woodleaf and caused heavy losses to Woodleaf. As a fourth-generation disciple, Kakashi knew what kind of power Naruto's body contained. It was precisely because he knew what kind of power Naruto was using at this moment that Kakashi looked at Zabuza. The power of Nine Tails is not so easy to control. Now that Naruto can use the power of Nine Tails, there is a possibility of him losing control. He has to solve the enemy in front of him as soon as possible, and then be ready to seal Naruto, who may go berserk. Not to mention Kakashi's reaction here, Sasuke also noticed the fluctuation of chakra behind him that was enough to be called surging. Turning his head behind him, Naruto, who had just fainted, stood up at this moment. His body was wrapped in a layer of fiery red chakra, as if he was wearing a fiery red dress woven by the sunset, with a violent and gorgeous beauty. Sasuke. You worked so hard to protect me just now, I naturally can't fall behind. I want to protect you, protect everything I cherish. For some reason, Naruto's voice seemed to become lower and hoarser in Sasuke's ears. But the firmness in Naruto's tone was clear to Sasuke. So Sasuke also slightly stepped aside. Since Naruto wants to protect everything he cherishes with his own strength, Sasuke naturally has no reason to stop Naruto. The only thing Sasuke can do is to do his best to help his partner achieve his wish, right? Seeing Sasuke making way for him, Naruto's mouth also had a smile. Naruto knows how proud and stubborn Sasuke is, but now in order to help his partner, Sasuke is willing to give up the enemy in front of him. It's enough to see how important Naruto is in Sasuke's heart, isn't it? Nodding his head to Sasuke, Naruto cast his eyes on Haku's figure in the ice wall formed by Magic Mirror's ice crystal. Just now, the two of us were beaten badly by you. Now I'll let you enjoy the feeling of being ruthlessly suppressed. With that said, the chakra on Naruto's body burned more fiercely as if it was splashed with liquor. Behind Naruto, there was even a shadow of a tail that didn't look so solid. The power of Nine Tails was actually used by Naruto to the extent of releasing Ichibi. The fiery red chakra belonging to Nine Tails kept rushing towards Naruto's hands and feet. Obviously, Naruto is now holding back a big move. Have a taste of my power. Naruto said, and his hands began to form hand seals. Originally, Shadow Clone Jutsu has several hand seals, but with Naruto's deepening control of chakra in his body and his proficiency in Shadow Clone Jutsu, Naruto can now almost launch it with only one hand seal. Ninjutsu, multiple shadow clone jutsu. Red Lotus, Sea of Man. Naruto has launched shadow clone jutsu many times in front of Sasuke, but this time is particularly different. Because each shadow clone was wrapped in a fiery red chakra coat formed by Kyuubi's chakra just now on Naruto's body. Shadow clone jutsu. Haku has a certain understanding of Woodleaf's shadow clone jutsu. Although shadow clone jutsu does have its own advantages, once it is attacked, it will turn into a cloud of smoke and disappear. Such a weakness is extremely obvious. So, Haku's hands began to form hand seals quickly. Ice release, 1,000 flying water kill. In the air, a few clouds of water instantly turned into icicles, and under Haku's command, they shot towards Naruto's shadow clone jutsu. However, everything wasn't as simple as Haku thought. Because Naruto's shadow clone jutsu was wrapped in Nine-Tails' coat, the icicles shot out by Haku were firmly entangled, and couldn't attack Naruto's shadow clone jutsu at all. Naruto didn't care about Haku's astonishment at all, but instead, he accelerated his attack. After both speed and strength were enhanced, Naruto and his shadow clone jutsu instantly defeated the entire magic mirror ice crystal, and Naruto's body ran out with Sasuke, rushing toward Sakura's direction. These days, Sakura seems to have learned a lot of medical techniques in Aokido. Although he didn't know what level she has reached, he could only let Sakura do some emergency treatment for Sasuke. Chapter 263. Seeing that Naruto and Sasuke were out of danger, and Naruto was able to maintain his sanity, Kakashi was also very pleased. Sakura was also shocked when she saw the wounds on Sasuke's body. She hurriedly bandaged the wounds on Sasuke's body. At the same time, he secretly made up his mind. His talent in this kind of battle was very clear in his heart, but he could control his chakra very accurately. This kind of aptitude is necessary for medical ninja and genjutsu ninja. In this case, why not try to make himself more useful? Of course, these were all words for later, because when Naruto put Sasuke down, he returned to the battlefield with Haku again. Naruto knew very well that the state he was using now was only temporary. If he uses it for too long, not only will it cause harm to his body, but it is also likely that his consciousness will be affected by the madness in chakra. So while he can still maintain this state, Naruto decided to beat the person who made him and Sasuke fall into a bitter battle. Naruto's body was now wrapped in the Nine-Tails coat, which greatly improved Naruto's strength and speed. Soon, Naruto arrived in front of Haku with his speed. Naruto directly punched Haku's face. It seems that because Naruto's momentum was too terrifying, Haku felt that his body couldn't exert any strength at all, so he didn't avoid such a straightforward punch. In other people's perspective, it was as if Haku rushed towards Naruto's fist, which was very funny. Crack. The mask on Haku's face was broken into several pieces because of the impact of Naruto's power. Just when Naruto wanted to continue his attack, Naruto felt that he seemed to see a familiar face from the gap of the mask fragments. Naruto quickly deflected his fist a little bit so that his fist would not fall directly on Haku's face. "How come it's you?" Naruto said to Haku with some surprise and confusion. This masked person who pretended to be Umbu was the big sister who woke him up when he was sleeping in the forest because of training. Haku knew that he had been recognized by Naruto, so he said to Naruto, "Yes, it's me." "Why?" Although he can't recognize Haku, Haku can definitely recognize him, so why didn't he kill him when he was unconscious? Instead, he let him fight on the battlefield like this. "I'm the tool of Zabuza-sama, and his request is the meaning of my existence. Since Zabuza-sama wants to attack you, then I naturally have to follow in his footsteps and kill you." Haku's words were very strange, because such a passage didn't seem to have a direct relationship with Naruto's question. However, Naruto felt that he already understood Haku's meaning. Haku regarded him as a killing weapon in the hands of Zabuza. When they met before, he didn't get any instructions from Zabuza, and with some of his own selfish motives, Haku didn't really kill him. But now that Zabuza has become the enemy of Naruto and his team, he naturally has to follow the footsteps of Zabuza-sama, right? On the other hand, in the battle between Kakashi and Zabuza, a huge ninja dog that was nearly 2 meters long was biting Zabuza's shoulder. Zabuza's left hand was hanging by his side. Obviously, his muscles and bones were injured, and he wouldn't be able to use it in a short time. Kakashi looked at Zabuza coldly, and his hands were constantly forming seals, as if he was completing a complicated ninjutsu. If you don't, then this battle will be considered to be over. No matter if it's you or your subordinates, you've already lost. If you're willing to retreat now, I can spare your life. However, if you continue to resist, I don't mind taking your life and your bounty into my own pocket. Zabuza still has a certain strength, and as one of the 7 legendary swordsmen of the mist, even if he is now in a rebellious state, once he really kills him, it will still make the mist ninja feel some resentment. In the current ninja world, seeking stability is the consensus of all forces, but for the mist, who knows if such a group of people will go crazy because they think that killing Zabuza is a slap to their face? So from Kakashi's point of view, he still hopes that Zabuza can retreat on his own. Hearing Kakashi's words, Zabuza's face that was stained with blood and looked a little hideous became even more distorted. Kakashi. Are you pitying me? I, Zabuza, am a ghost man. I don't care about things like life and death. You want me to leave on my own accord after saying such a thing? Let my saber tell you my answer. With that said, Zabuza used his still intact right hand to gather the beheading broadsword in his hand and rushed towards Kakashi. It's like he's crazy, he didn't use the silent killing jutsu. Instead, he had an indescribable feeling of overbearingness. Kakashi didn't want to kill Zabuza because he was afraid of trouble, but now that Zabuza has gone crazy, what's the harm in killing him? Zabuza has his own pride, doesn't Kakashi have it too? In the center of Kakashi's hand, Raiton chakra was constantly condensing. Soon, an ear-piercing squeaking sound could be heard. But with the continuous infusion of Raiton chakra, such a noisy sound slowly disappeared, and the thunder in Kakashi's palm became brighter at this moment. The 3 tomo in his eyes rotated quickly. Kakashi's eyes stared at the position of Zabuza's heart. Haku, who was opposite Naruto and preparing to fight Naruto again, clearly felt the huge chakra in Kakashi's hand, and his eyes seemed to have made a decision. He injected his chakra into his feet at all costs, even if his meridians were swollen and unbearable. Haku didn't stop the injection of chakra. When chakra seemed to have reached a critical point, Haku suddenly rushed in the direction of Zabuza with a speed that was difficult to be seen by the naked eye. Chapter 264. Kakashi's eyes widened slightly, as if looking at the scene in front of him with a little shock. Raikiri accurately hit a person's body, causing blood to splatter everywhere, and because the nature of Raiton chakra reached the extreme in this move, there were even scorch marks on the wound caused by Raiton chakra. But the person who was hit was not the target he originally wanted to hit, but Haku, who had been following behind Zabuza and was engaged in a fierce battle with his 2 disciples just now. The moment Haku rushed over, even Kakashi's 3 tomo Sharingan almost missed Haku's movement. Haku seemed to have abandoned everything, and the limit in front of Haku didn't seem to exist at all. He burst out with an unimaginable speed. Of course, Kakashi's hand penetrated Haku's chest and stabbed into his shoulder, making his 2 arms basically useless. Haku, you, Zabuza looked at Haku, who blocked Kakashi's killing move in front of him, and he was shocked to call out the name of the child he picked up from the garbage dump on the street. Haku turned his head and looked at Zabuza. Although his expression was a bit sad, there seemed to be a trace of satisfaction in his eyes. Zabuza. Sama. It's great that you're okay. Am I a qualified tool? Zabuza told Haku again and again that Haku was just a tool for him. Such words engraved a very deep mark in Haku's heart. Haku was willing to do anything for Zabuza, standing in the position of a tool. But Zabuza was very clear about the condition of his body. When he fought with Kakashi just now, he was actually seriously injured. Coupled with Kakashi's nature change and the stimulation of Raiton chakra, even some of the original internal injuries in his body broke out. Now he was actually a candle in the wind, and he could die at any time and anywhere. Originally, Zabuza thought that if he died in the hands of Kakashi, it would be a good choice, but Haku stepped forward and blocked the fatal blow for him. That's right. Bai is a perfect tool for me. Although the words were obviously so cold and indifferent, everyone could hear that Zabuza's tone at the moment was so gentle and soft. Is Haku really just a simple tool for him? As a rebellious mist ninja, Zabuza has been surviving in the chaotic environment of the ninja world for many years. And for such a long time, he spent with Haku. People are not plants and trees, how can they be emotionless? It's just that Zabuza buried such feelings deep in his heart. He didn't tell anyone, and even wanted to deceive himself. But now that Haku died for him, such deep feelings became deeper and deeper because of the accumulation of time, until now, it completely broke out. Zabuza seemed to realize how important Haku was to him. That kind of deep emotion hit Zabuza's tear ducts at this moment. The person who was called Ghost Man had tears welling up in his eyes. Zabuzaka-sama, although Zabuza has never shown his inner feelings in front of Haku, at this moment, the mist in his eyes was clearly seen by Haku. Haku's heart was full of happiness. He just called out Zabuza's name, but he couldn't say the next word. It's just that his beautiful eyes have lost the brilliance of life at this moment, looking so empty and dull. Haku is dead. Zabuza has seen a lot of dead people, even when he graduated from the ninja school at a young age, he even killed all his classmates. But at this moment, Zabuza felt that the word death was so heavy, like a huge stone pressing down on his heart. Humph, sure enough, trash will always be trash. A very harsh voice sounded in everyone's ears. Everyone looked at the place where the voice came from, and a short man with sunglasses stood there. There were a lot of people standing behind the man with sunglasses. None of them looked friendly, and all of them had ferocious looks in their eyes. I spent a lot of money to hire you, but what did you do? Before reaching the wave country, I have already lost 2 of my men. In the end, I took action twice, once I came back like a stray dog, and this time, I even let my men die. Zabuza, trash like you is really useless. In that case, let me do it myself. Whether it's you, Danas, or this group of woodleaf ninjas, all of them will be killed by the people I brought. With that said, the man with sunglasses, who was the mastermind behind all of this, said to the group of punks behind him, all of you, kill 1 person and I will reward him with 100,000. After hearing the amount of reward mentioned by Kato, the group of punks was also excited. It seemed that whether it was Kakashi or Zabuza, they were walking money bags in their eyes. Ninjas? So what? I have so many people. Even if I use my own life to kill them one by one, I can still kill them. Once he had 100,000, wouldn't he be able to squander it? Originally, Zabuza's face still had a lot of sadness, but now Zabuza's face calmed down. He kicked a kunai under his feet into the air. His lower jaw struggled to break free from the bandage on his face and caught the kunai flying in the air in his mouth. Zabuza said to Kakashi, since my employer is ready to kill me, then you and I are no longer hostile. Now I only want to do one thing, which is to drag this bastard who insulted White to hell. If you think I'm still a good opponent, then please bury me with White after I die. After that, he didn't care whether Kakashi agreed to his request or not. Zabuza looked at Kato with his sharp eyes. It's this person who insulted the only pure land in my heart. Since I'm going to die anyway, isn't it better to die in order to guard my pure land named White? Kato's scalp tingled under Zabuza's gaze, and he quickly shouted to the group of punks around him, what are you doing? Are you stupid? Hurry up. Chapter 265. However, the group of gangsters around Kato were hesitant, because Zabuza's eyes were too terrifying at this moment. Obviously, there was no murderous intent, but it was full of indifference to life. Whether it was the enemy's life or his own life, it seemed to have become worthless in Zabuza's eyes at this moment. Zabuza seemed to only want to let him have a good massacre so that he and Haku can leave this world that has tortured him for so many years. Kato was also very nervous, but he didn't have much fighting power. Therefore, Kato kicked one of his lackeys hard, causing him to fall to the ground. Then he took out a thick stack of money from his arms and sprinkled it in the sky. "All of you go. I have a lot of money, whoever can kill this man with bandages on his face, I will give him 500,000. Don't you all go." Money moved people's hearts. When Kato directly took out the 500,000 yuan reward, there was a person who ignored the danger of Zabuza because of the temptation of money. "Go. There is only one person on the opposite side, I don't believe that I can't kill him." After saying that, he had already rushed up. Once someone took the lead, many gangsters were also moved, and one by one, they rushed up. "Kill him. This much money is enough for us to enjoy for a long time, we can't let it fall into the hands of others." One by one, the gangsters rushed up, but Zabuza's eyes were still so indifferent. Looking at the group of gangsters rushing towards him, he just bit the kunai in his mouth tighter. One of the gangsters approached Zabuza with a thick iron rod in his hand. He directly raised the iron rod in his hand and smashed it towards Zabuza's back. Zabuza didn't dodge, but directly hit his body. "Ha ha ha. I hit him. I hit him." Ordinary people in the ninja world have a kind of awe for ninjas. When a gangster hit Zabuza with the iron rod in his hand, it undoubtedly encouraged more gangsters. However, Zabuza twisted his neck, and the kunai directly slit the little punk's throat. However, the other gangsters were obviously controlled by their own desires. They rushed toward Zabuza as if they were not afraid of death. Kato, who was watching from afar, watched those gangsters who had been driven by his money lose their lives in the hands of Zabuza. The blooming flowers of blood seemed to be the sacrifice offered by Zabuza for Haku's departure. It was beautiful yet filled with a bloody aura, causing everyone to be captivated by this beauty and also caused everyone to feel fear because of this bloody aura. Kato also had some lingering fear in his heart, he seemed to have underestimated ninjas. Kato moved his feet back a little bit, but then he noticed that Kakashi was looking at him with a smile. Kakashi was playing with a kunai in his hand, as if he was ready to shoot it at any time. Seeing such a scene, Kato didn't dare to move at all. In fact, he was just a businessman. Although the money in his hands made him a local tyrant, he didn't have any strength. Now that he was being stared at by a woodleaf ninja, the fear in his heart was so clear that he didn't dare to move at all. Finally, most of the gangsters brought by Kato seemed to have been killed. The remaining gangsters looked at the corpses on the ground, and their minds that were bewitched by money seemed to have sobered up. This ninja. Has he killed so many people? Finally, a gangster ran away. Just like dominoes, a slight movement in one part would affect the rest. Each and every one of the hooligans' hearts were filled with boundless fear. Those with better mental states had their legs trembling, not daring to move forward at all. Those with worse mental states directly ran for their lives. Zabuza seemed to have found that no one was attacking him, so he straightened his back a little. Although there were still many wounds on his body, Zabuza was completely unmoved, and he walked straight toward Kato. When the punks saw Zabuzan coming, they hurriedly moved their bodies in a panic, making a path for Zabuzan. You. Kato looked at the gangsters who made way for Zabuza, and he was very angry and shouted at them. But Zabuza quickly arrived in front of Kato. Kato quickly squeezed out a smile on his face, and looked at Zabuza with some flattery and said, "Zabuza-sama. Just now, I went too far. How can I swallow the money I gave you? How about this, I will give you all the reward for your mission, and then give you an extra 1,000,000, and then you and I will go our separate ways." Kato's words were only half finished, but Zabuza's eyes were still staring at Kato indifferently. "I will give you money, I have a lot of money. As long as Zabuza-sama can forgive me and let me go, I am willing to give all my money as compensation for offending Zabuza-sama. I just beg you, please let me go." Hearing Kato's words, Zabuza finally opened his mouth. But there was a sad smile on his face, which made everyone's heart tremble. "What I lost. You can't afford it. Moreover, for me now, what is the value of money? You should obediently become the sacrifice I prepared for my Haku. I hope that Haku can live in a peaceful era in her next life, so that God can live up to her kindness." Kato seemed to want to say something, but Zabuza directly cut Kato's throat with the bitter in his mouth. Blood sprayed on Zabuza's face, but Zabuza didn't have the slightest intention of wiping it off. Instead, he stumbled to the side of Haku's body and directly lay on the ground. Suddenly, he felt a trace of coldness on his forehead. In the wave country, it was snowing. Finally, Zabuza's eyes were no longer indifferent. Instead, they were filled with a kind of gentle love. He put his hand on Haku's hair and looked at the snowflakes falling from the sky. He murmured, "Haku, Haku, Haku. Haku, did you see it? It's snowing. The snowflakes are so beautiful." Chapter 266. In a forest next to the bridge, Nangongja looked at the snowflakes falling from the sky and everything that happened on the Wave Country Bridge with a lot of emotions in his heart. Originally, Nangongja came here to prevent Kakashi from making any mistakes, and there was no way to guarantee the safety of Naruto and the other children. But he had to say that Naruto and Sasuke's performance was indeed beyond Nangongja's imagination. Far away, Nangongja seemed to see Ataka wearing a very shabby armor leading a group of people to the bridge where Naruto and the others were. Nangongja also shook his head and turned back to the Blue Wood Hall. Perhaps with the help of this bridge and people like Izawa, the small country of Wave could embark on a difficult and tortuous road to rise up. However, all of this has nothing to do with Nangongja. In order to fulfill Zabuza's last wish, Kakashi buried Zabuza and Haku together. As for the Zenjutsu, he also inserted the Zenjutsu on their graves and used it as a tombstone. After all, the Zenjutsu belonged to the Mist Village. Even if Kakashi took it away, some of the special techniques still couldn't be mastered. Because of such a Zenjutsu, he didn't know how long it would take to deal with the Mist Village. It was better to leave it here as a tombstone for Zabuza. "We are leaving tomorrow, are you ready?" Kakashi said to Nangongja. After all, Nangongja said that he would go to Woodleaf and Watergate to talk about some important information face to face. "Of course, I don't have any luggage, so I can leave anytime and anywhere." Nangongja smiled, but Kakashi's expression was a little hesitant. It seemed that he wanted to say something, but he didn't know whether to say it or not. "Do you have any questions to ask me?" Obviously, Nangongja also saw Kakashi's hesitant expression, so he asked. When Kakashi heard Nangongja's words, his heart sank, and he said to Nangongja, "As far as I know, such a Blue Wood Hall is actually established by a ninja organization, right?" Hearing Kakashi's words, Nangongja also nodded to show that it was true. And in Nangongja's heart, it turned out that Kakashi was hesitant about this. Indeed, he, a person who hasn't been in contact with Woodleaf for a long time, suddenly appeared in the subordinate organization of another organization. If it wasn't for his good relationship with Kakashi, and he also helped Kakashi do a lot of things in the past few days, Kakashi wouldn't use his own mouth to ask questions, but use his own kunai to ask questions. "Kakashi, I already know what you mean. This superior organization of Blue Wood Hall does have a lot of connections with me. That's why I can appear in this Blue Wood Hall, but I can assure you that this organization can't bind me. This time, I hope to go back to Woodleaf with you, and there are indeed various reasons. You can believe me." Although Nangongja still didn't tell Kakashi about his real relationship with the Blood Cloth Pavilion, he made it clear that although he had a relationship with the Blood Cloth Pavilion, the Blood Cloth Pavilion couldn't bind him to do things that he didn't want to do. This situation was enough to make Kakashi believe in Nangongja. After all, they were old friends who had known each other for many years. The understanding between them was also an important factor that made Kakashi believe in Nangongja. Sorry, just now Kakashi stepped forward and patted Nangongja's shoulder with his hand, obviously a little guilty. After all, he suspected Nangongja. Although this kind of interrogation was no different from routine, no one liked the feeling of being suspected, right? It's nothing. This is the Kakashi that I know, isn't it? Although sometimes he looks very lazy, on some matters of principle, Kakashi is absolutely not willing to have the slightest negligence. Nangongja smiled and said to Kakashi. After that, he didn't say anything. He just turned and walked into the inner hall of Blue Wood Hall. Only Kakashi was still sitting there, staring at Nangongja's departing figure. No one knew what he was thinking. The next day, early in the morning, Nangongja, Kakashi, and Naruto had already gotten up. The five of them quietly left the location of Blue Wood Hall. Obviously, they didn't want to disturb the people of Wave Country. They just wanted to leave quietly. Nangongja stood at the end of the bridge and looked at the looming Wave Country in the morning fog. He didn't say anything and left. Originally, because they had to worry about the speed of an ordinary person, Naruto and the others spent a lot of time on the way to Wave Country. However, this time, they were traveling with Nangongja. Naturally, they could travel at full speed. There was nothing special along the way, so after a short journey, Nangongja arrived at the gate of Woodleaf Village. It was also a coincidence that the gatekeepers were still the two who didn't recognize him in Watergate, Gang Zitai and Shen Yuchuyun. This time, these two people recognized Nangongja. They didn't stop Nangongja and entered Woodleaf Village. After bidding farewell to Kakashi and Naruto, Nangongja also returned to his home. How long has it been since I came back? Nangongja asked himself quietly. He found that he hadn't come back for several years, but the house was still very clean. It seems that Yabuki cleaned up the house for him again. Nangongja just entered his house, but an umbu suddenly appeared in front of Nangongja. But Nangongja looked very calm. There was no trace of panic when a person suddenly appeared in front of him. Nangong Shinobi, Hokage invites you. Sure enough, this umbu belongs to the fourth Hokage, Watergate's umbu. I was going to see Watergate. Although the time is different from what I imagined, it doesn't matter. Nangongja smiled, and suddenly his figure disappeared. As an umbu, it is common for him to suddenly disappear, but his target suddenly disappeared in front of him. This is simply a disgrace to the umbu. But there is no way, Nangongja is indeed much faster than him. Such an uncomfortable mood can only be endured by himself. The umbu surrounded him and finally found Nangongja's figure, and hurriedly used all his strength to catch up. As the person who invited Nangongja, if he is left far behind by Nangongja, how can he survive in the future? Chapter 267. So, you're back? After leaving Konoha for more than 2 years and nearly 3 years, you came back again? Watergate sat in his seat and looked at Nangongja with a faint smile. When Watergate first returned to Woodleaf Village, he actually hoped that he could use Nangongja's power and reputation to stabilize the situation. After he left Woodleaf, those ambitious people were ready to make trouble. At that time, Nangongja agreed to such a proposal. But to be honest, the most difficult period for Watergate in Woodleaf was the 2 years when Nangongja immediately came to Woodleaf. Whether it was the pressure from the higher-ups of Woodleaf or the fact that his child was Column Force from Nine Tails, Watergate felt that a part of him seemed to have collapsed under the heavy pressure. Watergate, I understand. My actions will definitely make you complain, and I'm prepared to be scolded by you. But now, what we should be concerned about is not my leaving without saying goodbye, but something more important. Do you understand? Nan Gongzhi looked into Watergate's eyes and said very seriously to Watergate. Watergate was actually a relatively open-minded person. When Nan Gongzhi said that there was something more important, Watergate quickly adjusted his state of mind. He stretched out his hand to Nan Gongzhi and said very politely, "In that case, please sit down. If there's anything important, tell me now." Nan Gongzhi looked around at the dark corners. Watergate also understood Nan Gongzhi's meaning. He waved his hand to the dark corners and said, "You guys go back first. You guys can leave first. Nangong Jiaonan won't cause any harm to me." When Watergate's voice fell, several figures also rushed out from the dark corners. Obviously, these people were Watergate's direct umbu, responsible for Watergate's safety. Nan Gongzhi saw that there was no one except himself and Watergate, so he nodded and sat on his chair. He seemed to be thinking about his words for a while, and finally, he spoke. Woodleaf's Chunin exam this time will have a huge change. When Watergate heard the term, Chunin exam, he was also faintly surprised. Originally, the Chunin exam was just a very ordinary exam, but this time's Chunin exam was different from the usual ones. After the Nine Tails attack on the village and Watergate's resignation for several years, the daimyo of the Land of Fire were quite dissatisfied with Woodleaf. Such dissatisfaction was reflected in the various policies of the daimyo of the Land of Fire towards Woodleaf. Such behavior undoubtedly made Woodleaf suffer a huge loss. And this Chunin exam was actually planned by Watergate to let Woodleaf's new strength shine in front of the daimyo of the Land of Fire, so as to repair the gap between the daimyo of the Land of Fire and Woodleaf's distrust. Now, such an important thing was said by Nan Gongzhi. It really made Watergate feel very uncomfortable. Changes? From inside or outside? Watergate asked Nan Gongzhi. Since Nan Gongzhi's purpose of returning to Woodleaf was to tell him information, Watergate also asked directly. No matter what Nan Gongzhi may ask for, as long as Watergate can get the information he wants, can't he? Seeing Watergate's meaning, Nan Gongzhi also smiled slightly. What if I say both? When Watergate heard Nan Gongzhi's words, he had a look of understanding on his face. Indeed, if such a plan didn't have any spies in Woodleaf, even if Nan Gongzhi dares to say it, Watergate wouldn't believe it. It seems that you have a goal in mind? Seeing Watergate's face return to normal, Nan Gongzhi said to Watergate. You've already said it to this point, how can I not think of it? The information of the Chunin exam was announced not long ago, but there are only a few invited guests. The supporters of Woodleaf, the Fire Country, and the Kazakage of Sunagakure, who cooperated with Woodleaf to hold the Chunin exam. If I were an enemy, I would definitely start with these two people. Because even if Woodleaf knows that these two people have problems, there is no way to directly start with them, right? As for the inside of Woodleaf, there are only a few people who can have the intention to cover up hostile people in the Chunin exam. It's nothing more than the two leaders of the elder group, Zhuan Shaochun and Mito Monitis, the 3 generations Hokage, and the actual leader of the root organization, Shimura Danzo. When the name Shimura Danzo was mentioned, Watergate's eyes suddenly flashed with light. Finally, Watergate understood why Nan Gongzhi returned to the village so anxiously, and even told him this information without any conditions. Everything is because of Danzo. Although the direct conflict between Nan Gongzhi and Danzo happened when Watergate left the village, the Umbu of Hokage still has information about these things. Although it's a bit vague, these things between Danzo and Nan Gongzhi can still be seen. As long as Watergate can find anything about Danzo's involvement in the Chunin exam, there is no doubt that Watergate can use various means to weaken Danzo's power. As long as Watergate can be ruthless, it's not impossible to directly remove Danzo's position in Woodleaf. Over the years, Danzo has used some insidious means against Watergate. Even Watergate is not willing to let go of such an opportunity to punish Danzo. It seems that you already know why I'm here. Nangongzhi knew that Watergate must know why he came back to Woodleaf, so he continued, in fact, I still like Woodleaf very much. After all, I have lived here for many years, and even fought for such a village for many years. If there is a slight possibility that Woodleaf can guarantee the safety of the people I cherish, I won't take my sister, Mashiro, and little Linger away from Woodleaf. Everything started because Danzo wanted to do something to me. I have thought countless times, if Danzo really lost his ability to cover the sky with one hand, would I bring my family back? I found that I really want to bring my family back. This information is an opportunity to transform Woodleaf and become less sick. I believe that you, Watergate, love such a village more than I do. You can also see that Konoha is slowly decaying at this moment. Do you want to cut off a piece of rotten meat from Konoha's body, or let Konoha, this big tree, wither? I look forward to Watergate making the right choice. Chapter 268. It has to be said that language is really a magical art. In the beginning, although Watergate seemed to be polite to Nangongzhi, Watergate actually didn't trust Nangongzhi in his heart. After all, Nangongzhi has been in the Woodleaf for a long time, and Nangongzhi wasn't a ninja trained by the Woodleaf, so Nangongzhi's loyalty to the Woodleaf was really questionable. When Kakashi returned to the Woodleaf, not only did he hand over his task, but he also told Watergate about the relationship between Nangongzhi and the Bloodcloak Pavilion. Although the Bloodcloak Pavilion didn't cause any major trouble in the past few years, as the leader of an organization, the Bloodcloak Pavilion quietly scattered its seeds in every country. On the contrary, the other party still actively expelled them in the name of charity, which would only make people despise them for no reason. Therefore, whether it was the Land of Fire or other countries, they could only pinch their noses and let the Bloodcloak Pavilion set up a medical center in their country. However, there are many umbu around each medical center from time to time, and once there is a move, it will be reported to the high-level ninja of each village. But this time, in the conversation with Nangongzhi, Nangongzhi didn't hide anything, and directly analyzed the pros and cons for Watergate. How important the Chunin exam is, Nangongzhi was very clear in his heart. Okay, I believe you. What kind of information do you have? Watergate looked at Nangongzhi, although Nangongzhi was too straightforward when talking to him, and he didn't even have the slightest intention to conceal his purpose. But Watergate didn't hate such a person. In the past few years, he has dealt with the elders of Kiba and the group of old guys en route. Their cunning appearance really made Watergate feel a little tired. Suddenly, a person like Nangongzhi appeared, so Watergate also felt a lot more relaxed. The information I got is not so perfect, but now I can be sure that the Sand Village has been pulled into this group of people who want to do something big in the Woodleaf. After all, in the last Shinobi World War, the Sand Village lost a lot of people, and they have a motive to hate the Woodleaf. At the same time, it seems that one of the Sannin of the Woodleaf, Orochimaru, is also involved. It is worth noting that Orochimaru used to be a member of the Akatsuki. Although Orochimaru betrayed the Akatsuki in name, there are still some connections between the two sides. This plan to attack the Woodleaf inevitably has the Akatsuki in it. Nangongzhi saw that Watergate seemed to have trust in him, so he directly said this information to Watergate. Sand Village. Orochimaru. Akatsuki. Watergate heard these three names, and his eyebrows wrinkled. After all, none of these three are easy to provoke, and now they want to join forces to find trouble with the Woodleaf? This was truly a troublesome matter. It seems that it's time for me to let my master come back secretly. When the time comes, the Woodleaf will have me, the 3 generations, and my master, 3 Kage-level powerhouses. But the other side also has Kazekage, Orochimaru, and maybe even some Akatsuki members. In fact, we are in a passive state of defense. In such a state, we must make sure that there is an essential gap between our strength and the enemy's strength. But now, it's obvious that the strength gap between the two sides is not big, and we are even losing." After saying that, Watergate looked at Nangongzhe. When Nangongzhe had a conflict with Root before, the strength he showed was already Kage level or infinitely close to Kage level strength. If such a strong force joins his side, the odds of winning will definitely be much higher. Watergate's gaze was so obvious, Nangongzhe naturally understood Watergate's meaning, so he said to Watergate, "Since I'm here, naturally I'm not prepared to be a bystander. But you should also be clear about my condition. Woodleaf's rotten meat has been staring at me. After this matter, although Woodleaf may suffer some losses, but as the Hokage who can lead the whole village to resist the invasion of other people, such a name is extremely good for you. You get fame, I get safety, these two don't seem to have any conflict, right? Even if this rotten meat is really cut off, the power in your hands will be stronger. What's not to like?" Nangongzhe looked at Watergate and said with a smile. Although he doesn't like this kind of method, after all, he is the leader of the Bloodcloak Pavilion, even if he doesn't like this kind of thing, he must understand it in his heart. For Woodleaf, Watergate, and Nangongzhe, Danzo is a thorn in their flesh, a thorn in their flesh, and a thorn in their flesh. If he can solve this problem as soon as possible, it's naturally a good thing. You go back first, this matter is of great importance, and it involves a lot of interests. Although I am the Hokage, this village is not under my control. If I make a decision, I will send someone to inform you." Although Watergate's words sound like a tactful refusal, Nangongzhe knows that Watergate has already been moved. But the Hokage family is not only composed of Watergate, there is also the existence of the three generations. Even if Danzo is disloyal, he is an old comrade of the three generations. Watergate has no way to decide Danzo's life and death. This trip, in fact, has already fulfilled Nangongzhe's expectations. Because as long as a new force like Watergate agrees with his ideas, then in order to fight for the interests of his new generation, in order to help those who support him to gain benefits, Watergate has no way to retreat. In that case, then I will take my leave. Nangongzhe cupped his hands to Watergate and was about to leave, but he couldn't help but say to Watergate, "Take care of Naruto more. In this battle in the Wave Country, Naruto has begun to awaken the Nine Tails chakra in his body. Although he can now forcibly control the power with his own consciousness, once the power is released too much, it will definitely go berserk. Go back and discuss with Kushina whether to continue to strengthen the seal of the Nine Tails or start to teach Naruto to use the power in his body. I hope you can make a decision early." After all, Nangongzhe was responsible for protecting the safety of Kushina and Naruto when Watergate left the village. He has a natural concern for Naruto and Nangongzhe. So although he knows that these words are not appropriate, Nangongzhe still said it. "Don't worry. Kakashi has already told me these things when he came back. When I get home, I will naturally discuss this matter with Kushina and Naruto." Watergate didn't seem to take Nangongzhe's overstep to heart. Instead, he smiled brightly at Nangongzhe, as if he was very happy that his son could be cared for by others. Chapter 269. After a day's work, even though Watergate was already a Kage-level powerhouse, Hokage, such a high-intensity profession still made Watergate's forehead ache. Fighting a battle of wits and courage with that group of old foxes is really too exhausting for his brain cells. Mom. I was so powerful at that time, Sasuke, that arrogant guy was completely unable to fight, but I suddenly burst out with a super powerful chakra to save him. Although I don't know where the sound in the sewer came from, it was a bit scary. Before entering the door, Watergate heard his son, Uzumaki Naruto, talking to his mother, Kushina, about his deeds in the Wave Country. Of course, he also exaggerated his role and belittled Sasuke. This kind of behavior, whether it was Watergate or Kushina, has been accustomed to. "I'm back." Opening the door of his house, Watergate took off his Haori and hung it on the hanger at the door, then shouted to his family. Hearing Watergate's voice, Kushina also hurried to the door of her house to greet Watergate. On the contrary, Naruto's originally excited face suddenly became a little cold, and he didn't follow Kushina to the door of her house to greet his father. "Welcome back, Watergate. Just now, Naruto told me a lot about this mission. I didn't expect that even the Mist Ninja Zabuza was involved. Fortunately, little Kakashi was responsible and didn't let Naruto get hurt, otherwise, would have gone to his door to find him." Speaking of this, Kushina didn't have the gentle state in front of Naruto. Instead, her blood-red hair was flying, making people feel very scared. Kushina was also a tyrant in Wood Leaf, known as the Blood Pepper. Watergate also gently wiped a drop of sweat on his forehead. He didn't know if it was real or not, and he smiled at Kushina, and even criticized Kakashi as worthless. If Kakashi knew that his sensei actually said that to him, maybe he could only hug his intimate heaven and cry in the toilet. Since the family has arrived, naturally, it was time to prepare dinner. Naruto didn't know how to cook, so this kind of thing naturally didn't have Naruto's turn. Over the years, Kushina has been preparing meals at home, and since Watergate came back, he also helped Kushina from time to time. If outsiders saw this, they certainly couldn't help but praise family harmony. But for some reason, Naruto still has some feelings of rejection towards his father. After so long, although there was no Cold War between the two, they still kept a certain distance. There was no intimacy between Naruto and Kushina. "Naruto, come and clean the table, then bring the food to the table." Seeing that the food was almost ready, Kushina shouted to Naruto, who was watching TV in the living room. Naruto also skillfully arranged the things on the table, then brought the cooked food to the table with Kushina. "Naruto," while eating, Watergate suddenly called out Naruto's name. Naruto didn't even raise his head, just eating the food in his bowl. Kushina saw Naruto's reaction and directly slapped Naruto's back, then said to Naruto, "Dad is calling you, why don't you respond?" Naruto also put down the bowl in his hand very impatiently, looked at Watergate and said, "What's the matter?" Although Naruto's attitude wasn't so good, Watergate didn't get angry. He was the one who let down his wife and child, and now Naruto has a grudge against him in his heart. This kind of thing is really normal. When you fought with a ninja in the Wave Country, did a kind of chakra that didn't belong to you come out of your body? TSK. Did Kakashi-sensei tell him? Yes, what's the matter? Naruto's answer was neither cold nor indifferent, as if he didn't feel that all this was worth investigating. The chakra that suddenly emerged in your body is the result of the Kyuubi breaking free from the seal. I sealed it into your body, giving you such power. In the shinobi world, there are 8 people like you. We call such people with tailed beasts in their bodies human column force. Your mother, Kushina, is the previous 9 tails column force. Since you have begun to gradually use the power of the tailed beasts in your body, then I want to give you a choice. Watergate said until here and paused slightly. Kushina didn't think much of it at first, but when Watergate said that he was also a human column force, a touch of sadness appeared in her eyes. Even if her mentality is optimistic, the feeling of being hostile for no reason is still deeply engraved in Kushina's heart, and it is difficult to dispel. You want me and your mother to completely seal the 9 tails in your body, so that he can only hide in your body, and from then on, he won't release his chakra to disturb the chakra in your body. Or do you want your mother to teach you how to use the power of the 9 tails and truly bear the identity of a column force? Now Naruto has no mood to be angry with Watergate, because Naruto knows that he is indeed facing an important choice. The 9 tails in his body is a problem that must be solved. Should he completely seal it, or should he borrow the power of the tailed beasts like all the column force? Naruto's young heart is facing such a choice that can determine his life at this moment. Watergate, Naruto is still so young. You're asking him to make such a choice now, isn't it a little? Kushina looked at her child with some worry, then looked at Watergate with a slight reproach. As long as it is a mother, there is no mother who doesn't think for her child. Now that her child is obviously facing an extremely important choice in his life, Shina Kushina's heart is also in her mouth. However, Naruto, who had been silent, suddenly raised the rice bowl in front of him and started eating. I can't make up my mind for the time being. Since I know that I can't make my choice in a short period of time, I might as well eat properly and not let this trouble me. Chapter 270. Nangongja walked on the street near his house. It was about 5 or 6 o'clock in the afternoon. Most of the people who were working had finished their work and were heading home. On the contrary, Nangongja was very conspicuous, like a person who was going against the flow of the crowd. Walking aimlessly like this, Nangongja had a lot of thoughts in his mind. Although he brought Mashiro, Nangongro, and Little Linger to the headquarters of the Blood Cloth Pavilion, where the 3 girls could eat and drink without worry and were very safe, Nangongja still faintly felt that he was ashamed to face the 3 girls. It was clearly the most precious period of his life, but he had to hide in the depths of the Blood Cloth Pavilion headquarters. If it wasn't because he wasn't strong enough and couldn't deal with the attacks from the root organization, why would the girls have to stay in the headquarters of the Blood Cloth Pavilion? Little Zhe? I just heard from Sakura that you came back with them. I didn't expect to meet you here. A figure suddenly stood in front of Nangongja, and a familiar voice knocked on Nangongja's eardrums. The person who came was Sakura's mother, Yachue. Yabuki? I don't have any meaning in staying at home alone, so I just came out to stroll around. Sakura's strength is still very good. As long as she meets a suitable teacher, she will grow up quickly. Looking at Yachue in front of him, Nangongja also praised Sakura. Alright. As Xiao Ying's mother, I know very well what kind of person she is. Although her grades were very good when she was in the ninja school, ninjas aren't powerful just because they do well in the exam, right? But these days, Sakura has become stronger and stronger, and this is enough. Although it sounded humble, Yachue's eyes were brimming with pride for its child. Nangongja looked at Yachue and felt an indescribable envy in his heart. At that time, he had personally suppressed his enemy, Rui Jin, and taken the Blood Cloak Pavilion into his hands. At that time, Nangongja told himself that this was enough. He had already taken revenge for his past life. But for some reason, there was an indescribable feeling in his heart that was difficult to smooth out. Nangongja had no choice but to focus all his attention on organizing the Blood Garment Pavilion. Now, the Blood Garment Pavilion was completely on the right track, allowing Nangongja to have some leisure time. This strange feeling became even more obvious. Looking at Yachue, who was so proud of her daughter in front of him, Nangongja couldn't help but think that if his parents were still alive and saw him now, would they be as proud of him as Yachue? But all this was just a hopeful imagination in Nangongja's mind. Nangongja knew very well that his parents had already left this world. They were so small, like the dust scattered in the air in this world. With a gentle touch from an ambitious person like Rui Jin, they had already lost the only mark they left in this world. Oh, right. There has been no one in your house for a long time, so you probably can't cook dinner, right? If you don't mind, Zhe, why don't you come to my house for dinner? I and Sakura's father also want to express our gratitude to you. If it weren't for you in the Wave Country, Sakura wouldn't have made such great progress, right? Yachue seemed to have discovered a very important problem and said to Nangongja. Nangongja looked at Yachue. In fact, Nangongja wasn't so willing to disturb Yachue's family. After all, Sakura's father was a chunin from Woodleaf, and the burden of the mission was not so light. Sakura had just returned home from a trip to the Wave Country. It was a rare day for the family of 3 to reunite, so it would be a bit inappropriate for him to go alone, right? But looking at Yachue's expectant eyes, Nangongja couldn't say no. Or, maybe Nangongja also faintly resisted the idea of him eating dinner alone at home? Anyway, in the end, Nangongja still agreed to Yachue's invitation, and went to the market with Yachue to buy ingredients for dinner. He watched as Yachui haggled with the peddler over a little bit of price. He watched as Yachui was overjoyed over finding good ingredients. He watched as Yachui was overjoyed over the fact that the item he wanted to buy was on sale. Nangongzhi couldn't help but put himself in the shoes of Yachui. If he, Nangongro, and Mashiro came here to buy things, would it be the same scene? Nangongzhi's heart was so looking forward to it, because this kind of ordinary life with a little warmth was the life Nangongzhi yearned for the most. But Nangongzhi's heart of wanting to bring Nangongro, Mashiro, and Little Linger back to Woodleaf had instantly cooled down, because Danzo was still in Woodleaf, and as long as Danzo was still in power, he and his family would definitely be subjected to all kinds of coercion. This time, he must beat Danzo to the bottom of the valley, otherwise, this kind of life would definitely not happen here. Little Zhe. Yachui seemed to have negotiated the price with the vendor in front of him, and shouted at Nangongzhi while waving his hand. Nangongzhi also broke free from his thoughts. No one could say for sure what would happen in the future, and since that was the case, he didn't have to care so much. Everything in the world was done, and the rest was up to fate. Nangongzhi looked in the direction of Yachui, and smiled as he walked in the direction of Yachui. On the way home, Nangongzhi had bags of various sizes hanging all over his body. About a quarter of them were ingredients, and the rest were actually clothes. One had to know that Yachui's family originally had their own clothing store, but Yachui still bought a lot of clothes. It was glorified as observing and learning, but looking at Yachui's excited face, it didn't look like it was learning at all. Instead, it looked like it was venting its shopping desire. Okay, we're at the door. That guy in my family has always been unwilling to shop with me. A lot of the things I like have always been placed in the store, and this is simply torture for me. Fortunately, I met Little Zhe this time, and he can help me carry these things. Yachui said excitedly to Nangongzhi, and at the same time, complained about her husband. But why was Nangongzhi's eyes filled with light? Was this a public display of affection? This was a public display of affection. Chapter 271. Dear, I'm back. Yachui had just entered the door of his house. He hadn't even taken off his shoes when he shouted loudly inside. Nangongzhi also reluctantly put the big and small bags on his body on the ground and said softly, "Sorry to disturb." After taking the slippers handed to him by Yachui, Nangongzhi also took off his shoes. At this moment, Xiaoying walked down the stairs in pink pajamas with lotus flowers, looking like she had not woken up yet. She rubbed her eyes and looked at her mother with sleepy eyes. "Mom, you're back. What are we eating tonight?" "It's stew," Yachui said to Sakura, then she moved her body slightly and said to Sakura, "There is a guest today. Your uncle Nangong is eating with us because there is no one at home." "Oh. Ah." At first, Sakura was still responding to her mother, but when her sleepiness gradually faded, Sakura finally saw Nangongzhi who was standing behind Yachui. She immediately screamed and ran upstairs to her room. Nangongzhi was about to say hello to Sakura, but Sakura had already run away. This made Nangongzhi awkwardly withdraw his hand that was already stretched out halfway. This girl. Little Zhe is not an outsider. Isn't it just wearing pajamas? It's nothing, Yachui said with some blame, but then she still brought Nangongzhi to her house and let Nangongzhi temporarily sit in the living room for a while. Originally, Nangongzhi still hoped that he could be Yachui's assistant. After all, he actually knew how to cook. However, he was driven out by Yachui's attitude of, "This is my battlefield. If you dare to come, I will fight with you." With no choice, Nangongzhi could only sit in the living room of Yachui's house obediently. Although he had been here a few times, many places had changed. There were a lot of things like group photos. Nangongzhi had nothing to do, so he casually looked at the photos hanging on the wall. Among these photos, most of them were photos of Sakura. There was a photo of Sakura's first training with him. Because he was too fierce, she had tears in her eyes. There was also a photo of Sakura after she entered the ninja school and got the age medal. Of course, she joined Team 7 led by Kakashi. Photos with Naruto, Sasuke, and Kakashi were also included. Nangongja was looking at the photos enthusiastically. Sakura had already tidied up and walked out of her room. Just as she walked to the stairs, she saw Nangongja looking at some of her photos. Things like her photos, it was naturally nothing to look at, but once others saw them, an indescribable sense of shame emerged from her heart. With Nangongja's strength, he naturally noticed that someone came down from upstairs, so Nangongja also looked back at Sakura who was coming down. She slowly walked to Xiao Ying's side and placed her hand on Xiao Ying's head, caressing it slowly, just like how Xiao Ying acted when she first arrived at her house. Unknowingly, Sakura has also grown up so much. The little brat who used to cry at every turn has now become a strong and beautiful girl. To be honest, Nangongja almost watched Sakura grow up. From a young age, Sakura was very close to him, and he also treated Sakura as his own family. When he looked at Sakura seriously, he found that time really passed quickly. In the blink of an eye, the little girl had now become a slim and graceful girl. Not to mention little Linger, Mashiro, and Nangong-ro who were older than Sakura. Nangongja reflected on himself. Have I always regarded them too much as children? Sakura's performance in the Wave Country's mission was not so outstanding, but she also performed well as a ninja. Although her strength still needs to be improved, she can be considered to be able to protect herself. And little Linger has fought several times more than Sakura, and he has never relaxed his teaching of little Linger. Now, little Linger's strength has reached the level of an elite chunin. Nangong-ro herself graduated from the Ninja Academy, and her mastery and application of chakra is very delicate. In addition, she has transcended the boundary and synchronized her internal force with chakra. Such strength is actually infinitely close to the top level of Jonin. On the other hand, Mashiro, although he came from the root, has never practiced, and he is not so interested in practicing, but he has his own introduction to some management and operation. Now in the Blood Cloth Pavilion, it is Mashiro who has replaced him to command the overall situation. These three girls, he still treats them as children who have not grown up, so he carefully protects them. At this moment, Nangongja suddenly began to reflect on himself. Is his desire to protect too much? Although it is gratifying to be protected, excessive protection will become a heavy shackle on a person's body. Nangongja also understands this in his heart, but it is easy to know and difficult to do. Now, Nangongja has made such a mistake. On the other hand, when Sakura heard Nangongja's praise, she felt a little at a loss for a while. She blushed and ran directly to the kitchen to prepare dinner with her mother. Yabuki, brother-in-law Haruno hasn't come back yet? Nangongja saw that Sakura's father, Haruno Hajime, didn't seem to be at home, so he asked curiously. This guy. I told him to go home early. Today, our daughter finally came back, so the whole family should have dinner together. I don't know where he went, but you don't have to worry, your brother-in-law is now on a long vacation, so he won't take on any tasks. Even if there is an urgent task, it won't be the turn of a chunin like your brother-in-law. He should be delayed by something, so he will be back soon, right? Yabuki said to Nangongja, but there was a sense of comfort in her words. A profession like ninja, although it looks glorious, is very dangerous. The slightest mistake can lead to death. As the wife of a ninja, and even her daughter is a ninja, Yabuki must have a heavy burden in her heart, right? On the contrary, Sakura did not think as deeply as Yabuki and Nangongja. When she heard her mother's words, she turned her head and continued to busy herself with the things at hand. Chapter 272. With the efforts of the mother and daughter, the meal was quickly prepared and served on the table. Hajime Haruno was also sent home by the ninja who was originally in the same team as him. It seems that he couldn't refuse the invitation of the ninja who was originally in the same team as him, so he went to a dinner party together. As a result, Haruno Zuzu was attacked by his teammates repeatedly, and under the influence of alcohol, he died magnificently. Seeing the drunk Hajime Haruno being sent back, and his mouth was still muttering, "I'm not a henpecked husband, at home, my wife is very obedient to me," and so on, one could roughly understand how Hajime Haruno couldn't refuse. Yachue didn't lose her temper. Instead, she called Nangongja to help her send Haruno Zuzu back to his room. After that, Yachue helped Haruno Zuzu change his clothes and went downstairs to Nangongja and said, "This guy is such a coward." However, her eyes were full of love. Although she didn't say anything good, even Nangongja could see that Yachue loved her husband very much. "Sorry for letting you see this, let's eat." Looking at him like this, I'm afraid he won't wake up for a while. After we finish eating, I'll make a bowl of hangover soup for him. Nangongja also nodded. Although he liked wine, he didn't lose his composure because of drinking. First, it was because Nangongja was just a hobby of his. It was okay to drink a few glasses, but Nangongja was actually very resistant to being drunk. Second, it was probably because a person would lose some of their vigilance after getting drunk. Nangongja may have always subconsciously thought that his situation was not so safe, so naturally, he wouldn't allow himself to get drunk. Of course, these were only Nangongja's thoughts, and it was not necessary to tell others. Seeing Sakura eating, Nangongja suddenly remembered something related to Sakura. "Sakura, did Kakashi inform you that Woodleaf Village is about to start a new Chunin exam?" Sakura heard Nangongja calling her, and at the same time, she also heard the words Chunin exam, but her eyes were blank. Sure enough. In fact, if a guide wants his disciple to participate in the Chunin exam, he will give a notice long time in advance and ask the members of his team for their opinion. If there is no problem, then the guide will specify a series of plans to help his disciple improve himself and increase the possibility of the Chunin exam. But looking at Sakura's appearance, Sakura's team, obviously, Nangongja's team. Although it's also possible that Kakashi himself is lazy and didn't tell his disciples, there is also a certain possibility that it's Woodleaf's attitude towards this matter. If it's just Kakashi's personal problem, then it's naturally nothing. But if Woodleaf's attitude towards the Chunin exam is like this, then it will undoubtedly make the new participants of Woodleaf lose their initiative. Obviously, their village is the organizer of the Chunin exam, but the participants of their village are the last to know? This is simply a stupid act. Uncle Nangong, what are you talking about? Chunin exam? We just became a genin, how can we take the Chunin exam so quickly? Sakura didn't seem to react, but when Sakura understood what Nangongja said about the impact of the Chunin exam on her, the first thing she did was to deny herself. In Sakura's view, how long has it been since she became a genin? For things like the Chunin exam, it's a bit too far away. Even her father, Haruno Haku, is only a Chunin after so many years. Sakura, you can't think like that. Although your team just became ninjas not long ago, your combat power is still in my eyes. As a Jonin of Konoha, if you were a disciple of my team, then I would definitely recommend the three of you to take the Chunin exam. Nangongja seemed to want to encourage Sakura, but what he said was indeed the truth. It's not that difficult to become a Chunin. As long as a genin can calmly analyze the enemy, and at the same time, his combat ability has reached a certain level, becoming a Chunin is not difficult. On the contrary, becoming a Jonin is a great test of a person's talent and other innate conditions. This is also the reason why there are a lot of Chunin in each ninja village, but there are only a few Jonins who are the top combat power. When Sakura heard Nangongja's words, there was a hint of joy in her eyes, but then her eyes were full of uncertainty. But, when I was in the Wave Country, I didn't do anything. When Kakashi, Sensei, Sasuke, and even Naruto, who has always been at the bottom of the school, were able to fight with the enemy, I could only protect the mission target in the rear. I don't look down on the job of protecting the target, but if I can, in fact, I also hope to do something to help my teammates when they are fighting desperately." As she spoke, Sakura's eyes had a touch of mist. Yachui sat next to her and saw her daughter's self-blaming look. She wanted to say something, but she was not a ninja and didn't know how to comfort Sakura. She could only look at Nangongja for help. After all, he watched Sakura grow up. Nangongja is actually very close to Sakura. Seeing Sakura like this, Nangongja was naturally willing to persuade Sakura, so he said, "Sakura, do you feel that you can't play a role in the team?" Sakura didn't speak, but she also nodded her head, as if responding to Nangongja's words. "But, Sakura, don't forget, when Sasuke and Kakashi were injured, if it weren't for Sakura's timely treatment, their wounds would definitely worsen, and they wouldn't recover as quickly as they did at that time, right?" Nangongja's words of comfort didn't seem to reach Sakura's heart at all. Sakura immediately denied, "These basic bandages, even a person without chakra can still do it. Am I not a burden to the team?" Hearing Sakura's words, Nangongja's heart was a little uncomfortable, because in the Battle of the Wave Country, Sakura's performance was actually quite good. Seeing her denying him like this, isn't that denying his own judgment? Chapter 273. Sakura, what you said is wrong. Nangongja's tone was slightly heavier. Sakura also felt the change in Nangongja's tone. Although her eyes were hazy with tears, she still looked up at Nangongja, as if she was expecting her uncle to say something to appease her. "Your team is indeed different from most ninja teams. Kakashi, who was a chunin at the age of 6 and a jonin at the age of 12, is a textbook genius. Uchiha Sasuke was born in the Wood Leaf clan, Uchiha clan. Naturally, he has a family background. His brother became a chunin at the age of 10. Although Sasuke is slightly inferior to his brother, he also received excellent teaching. As for the last place Naruto, his father is Yondaime Hokage, known as the most suitable man to become a ninja. His mother is also from the destroyed Whirlpool country. How can the child of these two people be an ordinary ninja? The amount of chakra in his body even shocked Kakashi. In contrast, Sakura, you are indeed a lot worse. Your father is a chunin, and your mother is a civilian. The so-called family background and talent inheritance are not at all. Compared with the background of these two people who seem to be as brilliant as the sun, the Haruno clan is indeed far worse. But, Sakura, have you ever thought about why you were selected to become a member of such a team? When Nangongja talked about Sasuke and Naruto's life, he mixed in a lot of unknown information. Such words, even Yabuki, who lived in the Woodleaf for many years, was surprised to hear it, not to mention Sakura, who didn't have much life experience. When Nangongja talked about how his jonin was a genius, when Nangongja talked about how brilliant and talented the Uchiha clan was, when Nangongja talked about Naruto's life, Sakura only felt a thick black fog pressing towards her. The black fog was like a solid substance, making the space for her to stand was getting smaller and smaller, and the air that she could breathe was getting thinner and thinner. In the end, Sakura seemed to be curled up in a corner, waiting for Nangongja's final declaration. But Nangongja's words took a turn, like a little break in the dark fog, letting the warm light gradually sprinkle into the depths of Sakura's heart. Nangongja could clearly see that Sakura was eager to be recognized by him. As a top student, Sakura can be said to have won many awards during the Ninja Academy. Even if Sakura may be slightly inferior to Sasuke in actual combat, Sakura can be said to have crushed everyone's existence in theory. In the second round of the Chunin exam, no matter who it was, almost everyone was trying to copy other people's papers, but only Sakura directly answered her own paper. Therefore, in fact, Sakura has her own pride in her heart. When Sakura could be in the same team with her favorite Sasuke, Sakura was full of energy to let Sasuke see her strength. But the reality was not as good as Sakura imagined. She was not the most dazzling one in the team. On the contrary, Naruto, who usually had a mediocre performance and could even be said to be a problem student, suddenly emerged. In many cases, his performance was even more eye-catching than Sasuke's. Sakura may be in such a situation, but she felt more and more that she was a failure. The feeling of inferiority when she was a child merged with the unwillingness now, and Sakura began to strongly condemn herself. Indeed, in terms of combat power, Sakura, you are indeed a little worse than Naruto and Sasuke. But without you, Team 7 wouldn't be the current Team 7. What kind of virtue Kakashi is, I think you should know better as his disciple. As long as it is not something important, he is always lazy. Although Sasuke is indeed very talented, it is easy for him to fall into an extreme emotion. Although I have taught him kendo before, I hope that he can control himself, but a person's nature is doomed. Kendo is just a means. If he doesn't want to control himself, no one can do anything about it. Naruto dared to fight, and at the right time, he was full of explosive power. But he is also a reckless and rough character. Once he fights with people, it can be said that he doesn't care about anything. Although such a person is a powerful force, he also has a huge flaw. On the contrary, Sakura, although you are slightly inferior in combat power, you are also the top among the genin. As long as you can practice hard, you won't necessarily be worse than Naruto and Sasuke if you can play your strengths. Family background? Talent? These can indeed make a person's starting point higher, but that's all. At the end of the practice, it is still a test of a person's heart. Sakura, you are strong enough and hard enough. In my eyes, you are not inferior to Sasuke and Naruto, and you have more potential than the two of them. Self-denial is the biggest insult to all your past efforts, isn't it? Since you are aware of your shortcomings, you should work harder. If you can't catch up with them in one day, then work hard for a month. If a month is not enough, then work hard for a year. What is there that Xiaoying, who I watched grow up, can't do? Listening to Nangongjia's words, Sakura's eyes gradually became firm. In fact, for children of Sakura's age, what they need most is never comforting words, but unconditional support and encouragement from the people close to them. Perhaps in Sakura's eyes, her father, who is a chunin, and her mother, who is a civilian, are not so credible on such a topic, but the one who said such words to her was Nangongjia, who has been regarded as a mountain since she was a child. I know, Nangong-san. Indeed, if I continue to feel sorry for myself, I can't keep up with Sasuke and Naruto in my life. Since I have become a teammate of a team of life and death, I naturally have to work hard not to let them look down on me. With that, Sakura tried to eat a few mouthfuls of rice. In his eyes, there was a look of determination that was completely different from the one he had before. Naruto. Sure enough, it's a world prepared for people who want to push themselves, pow, up, woo. Chapter 274. When Team 7's vacation was over, Naruto and Sasuke's injuries were almost healed. Sakura also appeared in front of Naruto and Sasuke for the first time after Nangongjia's encouragement. Her originally long cherry-colored hair had now turned into a neat short haircut. This change made Xiaoying look even more valiant and heroic. Kakashi, as usual, did not appear at the previously scheduled time. After about half an hour, Kakashi finally arrived. His face was covered by a forehead protector and a mask, only a pair of listless eyes could be seen. Kakashi also seemed to feel that he should give an explanation for being late, so he scratched his head and said to Naruto and the others, sorry, I occasionally get lost on the road of life." Looking at the reaction of his three disciples, it was obvious that they didn't believe anything he said. While Naruto and the others looked at him with contempt, Kakashi also had the opportunity to observe his disciples' mental state after this short vacation. Naruto and Sasuke were fine, after all, they only suffered a little injury. After this period of rest, they have obviously recovered, and they looked quite energetic. But Sakura's change was very eye-catching. As Sakura's sensei, Kakashi actually did some research on them when he took over them. The reason why Sakura's long hair was not so in line with the ninja's requirements, Kakashi also knew a little about it. For Sakura's state, Kakashi, as a sensei, naturally knows about it. But as a person who didn't have much intimate contact with girls, and the only person who wanted to get close to them was already sacrificed, Kakashi didn't know how to comfort Sakura, he only hoped that she could adjust herself. But looking at the current situation, Sakura seemed to adjust her state faster than Kakashi thought, which made Kakashi feel particularly surprised. Kakashi's surprise was so obvious, his dead fish eyes have been staring at Sakura. After the initial confusion, Sakura also understood the reason for Kakashi's surprise. She also felt a warm current in her heart. Her sensei actually cares about her, doesn't he? Kakashi-sensei, I'm sorry that my previous state made you worry. Nangong uncle has already talked to me about the things that troubled me before, I won't be worried about such a situation. Since I have noticed my shortcomings, then it's a good thing. I will work harder in the future so that I can catch up with the team's growth speed. Hearing Sakura's words, Kakashi also understood in his heart. As a close friend of Sakura, Nangong Zhe is indeed more suitable to persuade Sakura than himself. Since there were no more problems now, Kakashi also looked at his three disciples with a serious expression. There are many reasons for calling you here this time. First, everyone is very tired in this mission in the Wave Country. Naruto and Sasuke also suffered different degrees of injuries, so I hope to observe everyone's state. Now it seems that everyone has recovered. Second, there is one thing to inform you. With that said, Kakashi looked up at the ninja eagle flying over his head. It was obviously a professionally trained ninja eagle. Soon, Konoha will hold the Chunin exam, which is held every 3 years. This Chunin exam is different from the previous Chunin exam. There will be a lot of ninjas who don't belong to our village taking the exam. Among them, there are 6 villages, including Woodleaf Village, Sand Village, Rain Village, etc. This exam is not only to select the best ninjas in our village who can be promoted to Chunin. We also hope that our Woodleaf Village can show our strength to the participating countries and even the entire ninja world. And I, as your instructor, have nominated you on the waiting list for the Chunin exam. Kakashi took out 3 application forms from his ninja tool bag and handed them to Naruto and the others. This Chunin exam is completely voluntary. I won't force you to participate in the exam, so you can consider it according to your own strength. When you decide to participate in the exam, fill out this application form and submit your application to the submission place written on the form above. After that, Kakashi turned his eyes back to his 3 disciples. Naruto's reaction was obvious. Obviously, he was very excited about the opportunity to apply to become a Chunin in the first year of becoming a genin. Sasuke's expression was the same as usual, but the fact that he could compete with the best of the best made Sasuke feel very interesting. Sakura, on the other hand, didn't have any unusual reaction at all. It was as if she already knew about the Chunin exam and had already corrected her attitude. Kakashi felt that there was nothing for him to do here, so he directly disappeared with a body flicker jutsu, leaving only his 3 disciples here. This Chunin exam, I'm going to participate. I'm going to become the Hokage. Now the opportunity to become a Chunin is in front of me. As long as I step by step from a genin to a Chunin, then from a Chunin to a Jonin, then the position of Hokage won't be far from me. I must let my bastard father know that Hokage is not just a man who abandons his wife and children to become a Hokage. After Naruto finished his declaration, he faintly added such a sentence in his heart. Obviously, he had a deep resentment towards his father. Sasuke surprisingly didn't ridicule Naruto, but his eyes were burning. Itachi, who betrayed him and his family, became a Chunin when he was 10 years old. Although he was not as good as Itachi now, it was also because he was born in peacetime and didn't have enough merit to be promoted to a Chunin. Although under the efforts of Nangongzhi, Sasuke was not blinded by his own hatred, but it was inevitable that there was a competitive mentality towards Itachi. Sakura, on the other hand, was obviously mentally prepared, and her eyes were exceptionally firm. The three children exchanged glances and nodded their heads. They understood each other's intentions and went their separate ways. Chapter 275. When Naruto and the other two children made their decisions, Nangongzhi also appeared in front of the fourth Hokage, Watergate. After receiving the nominees, Nangongzhi was called by the Umbu to Watergate's office. Although you have already informed me of the possible problems in this Chunin exam, the arrow is already on the bow. Therefore, this Chunin exam must be held. Seeing Nangongzhi, Watergate opened his mouth and said his decision. But Nangongzhi didn't care at all, because only by holding this Chunin exam smoothly can Danzo reveal the slightest bit of his secret. Getting rid of Danzo, this is Nangongzhi's ultimate goal. Watergate obviously saw that Nangongzhi didn't care about his decision, but he still said, this Chunin exam has a total of 6 villages, a total of 153 ninjas from various villages participating. And our Woodleaf village has sent 87 outstanding ninjas to participate. Now the examiners of several exams have been decided, and all the Umbu that can be mobilized have been arranged to secretly protect the smooth progress of the Chunin exam. However, after thinking for a long time, I feel that the enemy will definitely leave some people among those who participate in the Chunin exam to confuse our line of sight. So, I hope you can help me check these ninjas one by one during the Chunin exam. After saying so much, Watergate didn't mention anything about Nangongzhi's request. But Nangongzhi understood that Watergate has already made a decision. In fact, Minato had already agreed to his request. But how can such an agreement be put on the table so directly? After all, in the eyes of most people, Danzo is still a responsible route leader for Woodleaf Village. Therefore, when Watergate gave the task of monitoring all the candidates to Nangongzhi, it was actually a disguised form of giving Nangongzhi some rights to investigate. As long as Nangongzhi can find even a little bit of Danzo's tail, then Watergate doesn't mind working with Nangongzhi to bring down the old fox Danzo. Originally, when Nangongzhi heard Watergate's arrangement, he nodded and was ready to leave. But Watergate took out a document from his desk drawer and handed it to Nangongzhi. Nangongzhi was also very puzzled why Watergate would give him a document at such a time, but Watergate has never been the kind of person without a purpose, so Nangongzhi opened the document in his hand and read it carefully. After a while, Nangongzhi finished reading the thin document. Are you sure? I didn't expect that besides Shina Kushina, the Uzumaki clan actually has an orphan in the ninja world. Watergate nodded and took the document that Nangongzhi handed over to him. Then, he placed the document back on his desk, appearing to be very careful. This document doesn't have her surname, only her first name. But judging from her red hair and the characteristics of the sealing technique she used, she is indeed a descendant of the Uzumaki clan. Even this child may have inherited some of the sealing techniques of the Uzumaki clan, and it seems that she has awakened some rare ability. Shina Kushina herself is a descendant of the Uzumaki clan that we, the Woodleaf, have spent a lot of effort to find in the ninja world. If it weren't for the wife of the first Hokage being an Uzumaki, we wouldn't have been able to guarantee that Shina Kushina can inherit the sealing technique of the Uzumaki clan. I have tried my best to block this news, but it is only a matter of time before Danzo finds out. I need you to let this child join our camp as soon as possible. At least make sure that she doesn't fall into the hands of anyone with ulterior motives. If you want to exert the strongest strength of the Bijou, the bloodline of the Uzumaki clan is an important condition. Such a child, whether in the hands of other ninja villages or Danzo, will be a huge risk. Yes, Watergate and Nangongzhi are talking about another descendant of the Uzumaki clan, Uzumaki Karen. This time, because of Nangongzhi's information, Watergate spent a lot of effort to investigate all the information related to the Chunin exam. Even the information of every candidate has been seen by Watergate, and Karen herself is a ninja sent by Kusanagi village to participate in the Chunin exam. Her appearance, ninjutsu, and ability were all seen by Watergate. For such an important target, he had to ensure that she was in his hands. However, almost all the people he can trust have been assigned by him to ensure the smooth progress of the Chunin exam, so Watergate can only ask Nan Gongxia to help him look after Karen. After all, Nan Gongxia has something to ask of him. Such a simple goal is nothing for Nan Gongxia, who has performed many difficult tasks in the past. As long as there are interests between each other, there is a certain degree of credibility, isn't there? Nan Gongxia also understands that he can only stand in Watergate's camp at this time. Nan Gongxia still has to help with such a small matter. Although he is a little uncomfortable with being ordered like this, now is not the time to worry about such a trivial matter. Watergate saw that Nan Gongxia has agreed, and his heart was a little relieved. When Watergate found Karen, the first person he consulted was naturally his wife, Uzumaki Shinakushina, who is also an orphan of the Uzumaki clan. It was also with the help of Shinakushina that Watergate completely determined the identity of Karen. But at the same time, Shinakushina repeatedly begged Watergate to let Karen stay. Such a relationship between bloodlines is extremely common in the shinobi world. Because most of the huge forces in the ninja world rely on their own bloodline to develop. Shinakushina, who originally thought that she had no relatives, knew that she may have a clan close to her bloodline. The excitement in her heart is indescribable. Perhaps Watergate also has the attribute of rake? Under Shinakushina's repeated pleas and some indescribable threats, Watergate put down his face and let Nan Gongxia do these things for his own happiness and sexual well-being, and the importance of the Uzumaki bloodline. As for which of the above three factors is more important, Watergate will not tell others. Chapter 276. When Sakura, Naruto, and Sasuke all appeared at the registration place, their instructor Kakashi was standing in front of them. I'm very pleased that you all came. Because, although I told you that this registration is completely voluntary, as long as one of you doesn't come here, then you will lose the qualification to take the exam. The world that ninjas face is extremely cruel, and many times we can't trust anyone. But there is one kind of person who is an exception, and that is your teammates. When you are fighting with someone, it is your teammates who will protect your back for you. Such people, everyone has to give absolute trust to them. Therefore, the most basic requirement of the Chunin exam is to participate in it as a team. The trial has already started from the beginning, and you can participate in the next trial. When Kakashi said that teammates should trust each other, Naruto and the others also looked at each other. Aren't they like this? As long as the three of them can be together, no matter what trivial task or a head-on fight with a strong person like Zabuza, they won't feel any fear. Kakashi took the application form from the hands of the three of them and stepped aside, making way for Naruto and the others to enter the exam. Naruto, Sasuke, and Sakura also put their hands on the door handle. Together, they opened the door that will allow them to take the Chunin exam smoothly. You have to go to the third floor, and there will naturally be someone there to tell you what to do next. Kakashi's voice came from afar, but they couldn't see where Kakashi's figure was. On the third floor, which was supposed to be the destination of Naruto and the others, there was a farce at the moment. A person with a funny round eyes and thick eyebrows wearing a green tights was thrown to the ground by a ninja, but he didn't seem to be so convinced, and from time to time he resisted and said something. Sasuke glanced at such a farce but didn't react. Instead, he walked in the direction of the fourth floor. Naruto took Sasuke's hand and said to Sasuke, "Where are you going? Aren't we going to the third floor? This is our destination. So many people are here, it can't be wrong." Sasuke glanced at Naruto with an exasperated look and said to Naruto, "Don't worry. Don't worry so much, we have to go where we should go." Naruto looked at Sakura behind them for help, but Sakura just glanced at the place where the farce happened, and still followed Sasuke's footsteps upstairs. Looking at the place where the crowd gathered, Naruto was about to release his shadow clone jutsu to save the boy who seemed to be bullied. But the boy who seemed weak and easy to bully just now turned over and jumped up from the ground. His whole body seemed to be full of exercise. He didn't even look at the ninja who just stopped him, and walked briskly to Sakura who was about to go upstairs. Are you Team 7's Haruno Sakura? Sakura looked at the boy again, but felt that she didn't have any impression of this boy at all. I am indeed Haruno Sakura, but you. The boy seemed to feel that he was a bit rude, and didn't introduce himself. Xiao Ying's face was flushed red, and she seemed to be very nervous as she extended her hands. She bowed slightly and said to Xiao Ying, I'm Locke Li, may I ask if you can date me? After that, he raised his head, blinked his round eyes at Sakura, with a bright smile on his face, he revealed his big white fang. But, no matter how one looked at this scene, it was hard for them to accept it. Xiao Ying had a polite smile on her face. She walked in front of Xiao Li and said to him, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, you're a good person. But, from your tight clothes, I can see that you don't know how to take care of yourself. And your shiny hair, please tell me how many days you haven't washed your hair? What's more, with your extraordinarily thick eyebrows and round eyes, you're even more eye-catching than the frogs I've seen. So, please let me refuse. Yes. Refuse. Refuse. When Li saw Sakura walking toward him, he felt that he had some hope of success. But after Sakura said those words with a smile, Li's body began to gradually turn gray from his feet. When Sakura finished her last sentence, Li had completed his gray transformation. There were even some cracks gradually appearing on his body, making him look like a worn-out plaster statue. Only Li's mouth was still muttering the words Sakura said, you're a good person, don't know how to take care of yourself, don't wash your hair, thick eyebrows, round eyes, and other words. Hey, Li, are you okay? A girl wearing a slightly masculine white jacket with two bun-like hair buns on her head walked out of the crowd and caught the grayish-white Xiao Li as she spoke to Xiao Ying. Since he chose this kind of confession, I naturally have my own way to refuse him. Also, please turn your head and look at the person you caught. If you don't know him, and he suddenly comes out to confess to you, what will you do? I wonder what choice you will make. Sakura didn't get angry at the girl who suddenly came out, instead, she said this to the girl. The girl looked at the gray guy in her arms who was barely breathing, and for a moment, she felt that she couldn't find any reason to refute Sakura. She really felt sorry for her teammates. So her sadness turned into anger, and one of her hands reached behind her as if she was about to take something out. But another person stood up, grabbed the girl's hand behind her back, and said, don't worry. Well, Tian. Since Li came out and said these words to Haruno Sakura, then he should be prepared to be rejected. Now it's just an overreaction, let's put the exam first. As for them, we will naturally have the opportunity to educate them during the exam. Tian glanced at the boy's hand holding her hand, and her cheeks were a little red. He also nodded his head and helped Xiao Li up. Team 7 Genin, hello. I'm Team 3 Hyuga Niji, also a wood leaf ninja, I hope you can show your level in the exam for the wood leaf. After that, he turned and left. On the contrary, Sasuke seemed to be thinking about the background of this person with white eyes, and his eyes couldn't help but have some inexplicable hostility. Chapter 277. Naruto obviously noticed Sasuke's abnormality at the moment, so he quickly caught up with Sasuke, who was walking in front of him, and said to Sasuke with some doubts, do you know the guy with white eyes just now? Why does he look a bit like Hinata? Sasuke didn't ignore Naruto's question. Instead, he looked at Naruto and said seriously, I don't know the guy named Niji, but he does belong to the same family as Hinata from our class, the Hyuga clan, which was once known as one of the noble clans of Konoha, along with the Uchiha. In the next exam, we are likely to have conflicts with these people. Remember, this guy with white eyes, a Hyuga ninja who has inherited his family, is extremely dangerous. After that, Sasuke didn't pay attention to Naruto's repeated questions about the Hyuga family. He walked directly to the door of the first exam and reached out to open the door. The moment the door opened, a noisy noise came out from the door. The Chunin exam is an exam that involves 6 ninja villages and hundreds of ninjas. Almost everyone who can be in the top position of the genin is participating in this exam. Most of these people are relatively young, but their strength is very outstanding, so when such a group of people gathers together, it's inevitable that the air is filled with an indescribable smell of gunpowder. "Oh, sure enough, you are here too," a slightly lazy voice sounded in Naruto's ears. Naruto looked back and saw that Shikamaru Nara from his class also appeared in the Chunin exam. Naturally, as the remaining 2 members of Ino Shikacho, Akimichi Choji and Yamanaka Ino also stood beside Shikamaru. Looking around, Naruto found a lot of familiar figures. In addition to Team 7 led by Kakashi and Team 10 led by Sarutobi Asuma, there was also Team 8 led by Kurenai, which included Hyuga Hinata, Inazuka Kiba, and Aburame Shino. Of course, there was also Team 3 led by Kakashi's old enemy, Might Guy, who was 1 year older than Naruto, and Team 7, which included Hyuga Niji, Tian, and Locke Lee. Yes, I didn't expect a lazy guy like you to come here to take the Chunin exam. Under normal circumstances, you should avoid this kind of troublesome matter and find a safe place to sleep, right? Naruto is also a bad friend of Shikamaru, so he didn't show any mercy when he joked. When Shikamaru heard Naruto's words, he didn't have any special reaction. He even nodded his head in agreement and said to Naruto, "You know me well, who would want to come to such troublesome things? If it wasn't for my mother forcing me to come and threatening me with various means to not give up halfway, I really didn't plan to come." When Shikamaru mentioned his mother, his face was full of fear, as if something was really threatened by his mother. But Naruto saw a trace of excitement in Shikamaru's eyes. Too lazy to come? Such an excuse is a bit too bad. But Naruto still didn't say it. Instead, he patted Shikamaru's shoulder and said to Shikamaru, "Isn't that right? My mother is the same. I'm afraid all the mothers in the world are the same." After saying that, Naruto turned around and greeted the other classmates who were originally his classmates. Hinata was very shy as usual. She greeted Naruto with a blushing face and didn't dare to open her mouth. Inazuka Kiba's attitude towards Naruto was as bad as ever, but Naruto knew that Kiba didn't have any bad intentions, he just didn't know how to express his feelings correctly. After hearing Naruto's greeting, Shino also adjusted his glasses. Just as he was about to say something, Naruto had already turned his head. Obviously, Shino's presence was still as touching as ever. Just when several former classmates gathered together and started chatting while waiting for the exam to start, a Konoha ninja with short white hair and eyes walked in front of Naruto and the others with a smile on his face and said, Brother Naruto, Brother Naruto. Are you the Woodleaf ninja who just graduated this year but participated in the Chunin exam? You're amazing." Naruto and the others also looked back at the man who walked to them. Obviously, he was much older than them. Naruto said with a little doubt, "That's right. Senpai, I don't know who you are." The white-haired man seemed to have realized that he hadn't introduced himself yet, so he apologized to Naruto and said, "My name is Kabuto Yakushi. As you can see, I'm a Woodleaf ninja. I usually like to collect some information. Seeing that you are so young and have some characteristics, I think you are very famous genin who graduated this year and participated in the Chunin exam. I have taken the Chunin exam many times, but I didn't pass it. Although I don't know if I can pass this time, I want to come and teach you some of my experience. I hope to make a good relationship with you." The smile on Kabuto's face was very bright, and it naturally made people feel an inexplicable affinity. But the more Sasuke looked at Kabuto's face, the more he felt that this person was untrustworthy. Originally, Naruto heard someone praising him and wanted to come forward and have a good chat with Kabuto, but Sasuke was one step ahead of him. He stretched out his arm and blocked Naruto behind him. I don't know what kind of information this senpai wants to give us. Kabuto wanted to talk to Naruto, but Sasuke came up and messed up Kabuto's original draft. However, Kabuto didn't receive any influence at all, and said to Sasuke very kindly, "The Chunin exam questions can't be obtained by a small ninja like me, but in the Chunin exam, everyone is our enemy. What I can provide you is some information about the participants of this exam. No matter who you are interested in, I can tell you." Sasuke heard Kabuto's words and laughed, but his eyes became more and more sarcastic and distrustful. "That's right. Everyone in this exam could be our enemy. Several of us graduated from the same class, and we know each other well, so we have a certain foundation for cooperation. But you, as a person who met us for the first time, came up to us and was so close to us, and even willing to provide us with information. Kabuto-senpai, I don't know if we can trust each other as much as we have been together for several years." Chapter 278. Sasuke's words were very realistic. "You just said that everyone who participates in the exam is our enemy, but now you're actively providing us with information. What do you mean?" "The friendship between us has been slowly accumulated over a long period of time. It's natural for us to have a basic trust in each other. However, you're someone who has nothing to do with us. Why should we give you such a degree of trust? In a ninja's battle, information is indeed important. But information is also divided into real information and false information, isn't it? If Medicine Master Pocket had the slightest bit of bad intentions and provided false information for them, then what was the difference between that and building a bridge to a trap for them?" Shikamaru, who was standing behind, also had a flash of light in his eyes. In fact, Shikamaru also subconsciously believed Kabuto's words just now. After all, he's a ninja from Woodleaf. No matter who it is, they will have the most basic trust in their heart. But Sasuke's words woke Shikamaru up. The Chunin exam, especially this large-scale Chunin exam, represents too much weight. Shikamaru also felt that he shouldn't easily believe anyone who may become his enemy, so he also winked at Choji and Ino, telling them not to stand out. Teammates Hinata and Shino themselves are relatively silent people. The only one who can be regarded as a prick, Kiba, saw that Shikamaru, the most shrewd among them, seemed to tacitly agree with Sasuke's words. Although he was still very upset, he endured it. However, there's more than one fool in this place. Uzumaki Naruto was the biggest idiot among idiots. He directly pushed Sasuke's arm away, stood in front of Sasuke, and said to Sasuke, "Sasuke, how can you do this? Kabuto-senpai also came up to greet us because he cares about us. As a Woodleaf ninja, you don't even trust Kabuto-senpai?" With that said, as if he and Kabuto already have a very deep friendship, he directly preached to Sasuke with these righteous words. He even puffed out his chest as if he was very proud of himself. Sakura, who was standing next to him, couldn't stand it anymore. Unlike Naruto, Sakura has always been intelligent. For Sasuke's judgment, Sakura also felt very convincing. Even if Sasuke's words did make people uncomfortable, Sasuke's character as a classmate and teammate for several years, Sakura has absolute trust in him. Sakura walked to Naruto's side in a few steps. She grabbed Naruto's ear and said fiercely, "You idiot, if you don't know what's going on, don't force yourself. Didn't you see that other than you, there was no one else who stood out?" Naruto also woke up from his stupor. He looked at Shikamaru, who was the smartest among them, and the always irascible Kiba, who didn't stand up. Naruto understood that he had messed up. He could only resentfully return to his position. At the same time, he looked at Kabuto apologetically, as if he felt a little ashamed that he couldn't help him. Kabuto also smiled at Naruto, and then said to everyone, haha. Little brother, you don't have to mind. Your friends are right to be so vigilant. The Chunin exam is different from usual. Everyone is a threat to you. As long as it's not someone you can completely trust, you should keep enough vigilance. Well, it seems that the first exam is about to begin. I'm going to meet my teammates. After saying this, Kabuto turned around and left, leaving only Naruto, who was touched, and the cold eyes of the others. Seeing Kabuto leave, Naruto also turned to Sasuke. It seemed that he wanted to continue to discuss with Sasuke about Kabuto's attitude towards a kind senior who cares about the younger generation. However, a group of people wearing Konoha's forehead protectors and looking quite fierce slowly walked into this huge classroom. The leader's head was wrapped in a dark blue headscarf, and the woodleaf logo was inlaid in front of the headscarf. And this person's face also had many scars. His sharp eyes swept through the genin in the classroom. You bastards, why don't you all be quiet? Anyone who dares to speak will be disqualified immediately. With that, he threw the thick test paper in his hand directly on the table in front of him, splashing a handful of dust. The classroom, which was originally a little noisy, was also quiet in an instant, without the previous noisy feeling. I'm the invigilator of your first exam, Woodleaf Ninja Marino Ibiki. This exam has a total of 10 questions, and the test paper you are about to get has 9 questions. The last question will be announced 45 minutes after the exam. The score of the exam is calculated in groups. So, the exam begins. I advise you not to cheat with clumsy means. Once you are caught cheating more than 5 times by the invigilator, you and your team will be disqualified immediately. After Ibiki finished speaking, the ninjas behind him stepped forward one by one and distributed the test papers to each candidate. After distributing the test papers, they sat on the chairs by the wall and stared at the candidates who were taking the exam in the classroom. Not to mention how these ninjas who faced the difficult content of the exam found out the profound meaning of this exam, and through a variety of not-so-secretive methods, but the invigilator turned a blind eye to them to cheat. Instead, Nangongja squatted on a big tree outside the examination room. His eyes swept across the few people from time to time. Nangongja didn't seem to care about whether Naruto and the others could pass the exam or not. Instead, he kept looking at Uzumaki Karen, who was originally his target, and Kabuto, who took the initiative to contact Naruto and the others just now. For some reason, Nangongja felt that there was something wrong with Kabuto. Nangongja waved his hand, and an umbu appeared beside Nangongja. He half knelt to Nangongja and said very respectfully, Nangong-sama, what can I do for you? Without looking at the umbu, Nangongja said, go to the database now and retrieve the information of a ninja named Kabuto. Try to be as detailed as possible, I think there may be some problems with him. The umbu ninja nodded, and his figure instantly disappeared beside Nangongja. Chapter 279. Closing the file in his hand, Nangongja closed his eyes and recalled the information he had just read about Kabuto. Kabuto himself was an orphan who was adopted by the head of the Woodleaf Orphanage, Nanoyu, and was given the surname, Kabuto. The records in the file were very detailed, from the time when Kabuto was in the orphanage, to the annual transcripts when he became a member of the ninja school, to the records of the missions he performed after becoming a ninja. But Nangongja faintly felt that something was not right. This sense of inconsistency lingered in Nangongja's heart and couldn't dissipate. Nangongja thought hard about every information he knew, but there was no way to find any flaws in it. It seems that Kabuto was the most ordinary ninja in Woodleaf, with ordinary experience. However, a thought suddenly flashed across Nangongja's mind. This record is too detailed. Yes, as the most ordinary ninja in Woodleaf. In the file of the umbu department, there should only be some important information, and even if some of the information is lost, it is very likely. After all, it's just the file of an ordinary ninja, and most of the documents in this era are paper documents. Such things are too easy to lose. But Kabuto's information is so detailed, it makes people feel that it is very unreasonable. After all, the Umbu department is an important force in Woodleaf. If they have time to study the deeds of such a small ninja, it is better to send more people to perform more meaningful tasks, right? In Woodleaf, there are not many people who can tamper with a person's basic information and the information stored in the Umbu department. It's nothing more than the Hokage or the Root department. The Woodleaf families have no way to reach their hands in such a place. If Kabuto was really a Watergate person, it would be nothing. But before Watergate gave him the task, he didn't mention that he would have a helper, and according to Watergate's character, he wouldn't hide such a small chess piece in Nangongja. Then, there could only be one Black Hand, right? The leader of Woodleaf Root, Shimura Danzo. I've finally caught a little bit of your tale. Although you're just a small character, it might be of great use if I keep an eye on you, right? Originally, I thought that I would have to dig very deep to find your traces, but I didn't expect that you would actually reveal such a flaw. At the same time, Nangongja thought of his two teammates who were Medicine Master Pocket. Red Copper Armor and Jian Meicheng, as Medicine Master Pocket's teammates, they definitely had a deep relationship. It seems like during the second exam, I can sneak in and get some information, right? While Nangongja was thinking about how to get Danzo's weakness from Yakushi Kabuto, the first round of the Chunin exam was coming to an end. After a lot of people were taken out, the exam time finally reached the 45th minute, and it was time to announce the 10th question. Naruto was also nervously looking at Ibiki, who was standing on the stage. To be honest, Naruto couldn't do this test at all. Among the ninjas present, except for a few Chunins who were deliberately planted to provide the correct answers, only Sakura and Hinata did it themselves. Needless to say, Sakura is a top student. Although these questions are indeed beyond the difficulty of a genin, the person who made the questions also considered that some people may choose to do it with their own knowledge, so these questions can be solved with the theory learned in the ninja school, but it will be very troublesome. As for Hinata, it's not that she completely knows the test in front of her. After all, Hinata's results were only a so-so. The little girl was simply frightened by the ferocious Ibixi on the podium and had no choice but to answer the questions honestly. Moreover, the little girl even had the time to care about whether Naruto, who was sitting next to her, has yet to answer the question. She has been looking at the Chunin sitting in the corner, hoping that the invigilator will occasionally be distracted and give her a chance to show Naruto a question or two. But after all, he's a Chunin, and it's just a short 45 minutes, he can concentrate at all. Therefore, although the little girl hoped that she could help Naruto, in the end, she didn't let Naruto copy the test. Ibiki looked at the genin who were copying in front of him using various methods that they thought were very secretive, and he seemed to be tired of it. He directly slammed his fan-like hand on the podium in front of him, and the loud sound directly made all the genin stop their movements. Hey! You trash! The 45 minutes are up, and I'm going to announce the 10th question of this exam for you. You have the right to choose whether to answer the question or not. If you choose the 10th question, and if you answer it correctly, regardless of the previous test results, I can directly let you get the full score of this exam. But if you answer wrong, not only you, but also your teammates will lose the right to continue the exam. At the same time, you will be finished. Body. Forbidden. Test. When Ibishi said that as long as they answered the 10th question correctly, they would get full marks. Many of them smiled, but the price of failure that Ibishi proposed made everyone dumbfounded. Naruto was naturally one of the many people who were dumbfounded. Naruto only felt very nervous and glanced at his two teammates. Naruto found that Sasuke and Sakura were actually looking at him. Obviously, the two were also worried about Naruto. But whether they were worried about Naruto accepting the 10th question or not, it's hard to say. 10. Ibiki stood on the podium and seemed to feel that the people below were too slow, and he actually started the countdown. 9, 8, more and more people began to sit still, and one by one, they chose to give up under psychological pressure. After all, things like the Chunin exam are actually held once every 3 years. This time, because there are many ninjas from other villages participating in the Chunin exam, the difficulty has increased a lot. Now that there are such harsh conditions, in order to avoid a lifetime ban, more and more people chose to give up. In just a few seconds, the number of people who gave up was much more than the number of people who were caught cheating before. The classroom, which was originally a little crowded because of the large number of people, became sparse at this moment. Chapter 280. As a ninja specializing in woodleaf interrogation, Ibiki is very good at grasping people's hearts. Obviously, with just a few words, he has already forced these gen into a desperate situation, making them feel that unless they have complete confidence in themselves, it's better to give up. Sakura, who was sitting behind Naruto, has been observing Naruto, and she has various calculations in her heart. Sakura thinks that this year's Chunin exam should be more difficult due to various reasons. If, just if, Team 7 gives up this time, they will definitely pass the next exam. After all, everyone is still young, even 3 years later, they will only be 14 or 15 years old, and becoming a Chunin is already a good thing. Her index finger was slightly pulled by her own muscles, jumping up and down. Sakura thinks that for various reasons, it's better to just give up this opportunity to take the exam and let herself prepare for the next exam. However, just when Sakura was about to raise her hand, a loud voice sounded in the quiet classroom. It was Naruto, who slammed his hand on the table and said to Ibiki, who was standing on the podium, "You bastard, don't look down on me. I'll take the 10th question." Ibiki was also taken aback by Naruto's sudden behavior. Ibiki, who has a short temper, was ready to call his men to take away this troublemaker. But when he took a closer look, this person has yellow hair and blue eyes, especially the iconic beard on his face. Oh my god, isn't this the son of my boss? Ibishi swallowed the anger that was about to erupt. Fortunately, Ibishi had always been a cold person in front of everyone, so he didn't show any obvious signs of anger. But as an invigilator, Ibiki still has to deal with such a situation, so he can only try to make his voice sound more serious and said to Naruto, "Are you sure? Your decision is likely to involve your 2 teammates, making them unable to take the Chunin exam in the future. Can you bear such a heavy burden?" Naruto seemed to have calmed down. He glanced at his 2 companions and said to Ibiki with a smile, "The 3 of us are a team. Whether it's good or bad things, we have already decided to bear it together. Uncle Nangong once told me that the momentum is like that of a tiger. When a person gives up once, he won't be obsessed with giving up a second time. I will never escape from this exam. Even if I'm a genin for a lifetime, it's much better than losing my temperament." Hearing Naruto's words, Ibiki also nodded secretly in his heart. These words are similar to 4th Hokage, but who is this Uncle Nangong? After hearing Naruto's words, the rest of the people who were swaying between taking the exam and not taking the exam also became firm. That's right, who is afraid of who? If this ninja, who looked smaller than most of them, could say such a thing, how could they not do it? Ibiki looked at the people below and knew that no one will withdraw even if he continues to pressure them. His originally cold face suddenly showed a gratified smile, and he said to all the people who participated in the first exam, "Very good. Congratulations, all of you have passed the first exam." As soon as Ibiki's words came out, everyone's face changed, but soon people like Shikamaru understood what was going on. It seems that the so-called 10th question is actually a test of a person's temperament. As long as they choose to take the exam, they will definitely pass. Nangongja looked at some of the people in the classroom who were crying with joy, and he was also gratified by Naruto's performance just now. Although Naruto's brain is not that bright, and it took a lot of effort to teach him. But Naruto has an advantage that surpasses anyone, that is, he will listen to some of the reasons you say, and even think about it and gradually apply it in his own life. If Nangongja was in Naruto's position, Nangongja would definitely not do the same thing as Naruto. After all, the number of competitors he can have is a little bit less, and now the passing rate is really high. But this is also the reason why Naruto is Naruto, isn't it? Not to mention Naruto, Nangongja looked helplessly at the corner in front of him, where a person was squatting there eating meatballs. Nangongja basically has an impression of Woodleaf's Jonin. Although he was a little far away, Nangongja still recognized this person. She is the examiner of the second exam of this Chunin exam, Mitarashi Anko. This person, who had an unusual obsession with meatballs, squatted in the corner of the room with a large box of meatballs and a bulging bag a short while after the exam started. In less than an hour, there was already a bunch of bamboo skewers used to skewer meatballs next to Red Bean. In the classroom, Senai Ibiki's voice rang out. Anko stuffed the meatball in her hand into her mouth and took out a few smoke grenades from her bag. She then threw them into the classroom's window. Then she opened her bag. There was a long string of words written on it, which probably explained her position and name, and then quickly rushed into the classroom with chakra attached to her feet. Originally, the people in the classroom were celebrating their passing of the first exam, but suddenly the classroom began to smoke. After the smoke dissipated, a woman appeared, posing in a very cool posture. Anko silently thought in her heart, "I'm really handsome." However, Nangongja, who had just witnessed everything, and Marino Ibiki, whose eyes were red from the smoke behind Anko, could only silently curse Anko in his heart, Motherf *Ker. Anko didn't have time to care about Ibixi's situation, but looking at the people in the classroom, she probably got the number in her heart. It seems that a lot of people passed the exam. Ibixi, you can't do this job well. Let me eliminate at least half of the people in the second exam. Originally, the first half of Anko's sentence was still teasing Ibixi, but when she reached the second half of the sentence, she slowly released her murderous aura. She looked at the genin in front of her with a cruel smile. The genin expressed that they were scared to death. Chapter 281. Woodleaf Village, the entrance of the Death Forest. The genin candidates who passed the first exam stood together, listening to Mitarashi Anko explain the rules of the second exam to them. Everyone understood what Mitarashi Anko meant by reducing the number of candidates by half. Every team will be given a scroll. The scrolls are divided into two types, the Scroll of Heaven and the Scroll of Earth. Only the ninjas who have collected both scrolls can go to the tower in the middle of the Death Forest to report to pass the second exam. This is the reason why the number of people participating in the exam was reduced by half. But the genin didn't only face the threat of other genin as enemies, but also the unique environment of the Death Forest. Countless ferocious birds and beasts live in the Death Forest, and all the participating teams have to find a way to survive in the Death Forest. If they are not careful, they will either die in the mouth of a beast or be attacked by other teams. Therefore, in order to avoid responsibility, Woodleaf also prepared a life and death contract for each participating team. After Naruto and the others signed the life and death contract, they entered the Death Forest with a Scroll of Earth. When all the candidates entered the Death Forest, Nangongja also appeared beside the invigilator of the second exam, Mitarashi Anko. During the first exam, I already found some strange targets. This exam in the Death Forest is a good opportunity for me to collect information, so I will go in first. Don't be too careless, maybe something unexpected will happen. Mitarashi Anko also heard about Nangongja's mission from Watergate, so she nodded and left with the ninja behind her. As the invigilator of the second exam, Mitarashi Anko actually has a lot of tasks. Although all the candidates have signed the life and death contract, Woodleaf still has to save all the participants as much as possible, right? On the other hand, Nangongja exerted force with his ankle and leaped into the Death Forest that was surrounded by tall barbed wire. Kabuto, let's get the other scroll as soon as possible, right? The red copper armor seemed to be a little fearful as he suggested to Medicine Master Hood. Orochimaru himself told the three of them that in the second exam, they should try their best to get closer to Uchiha and Sasuke's Team 7, so they didn't act immediately when they entered the forest, but gathered together to discuss countermeasures. At the beginning of the first exam, Kabuto encountered a nail in Sasuke's hand and felt that their task was a bit difficult. That's also possible. Uchiha Sasuke doesn't seem to be as immature as the information we collected. In the first exam, his performance and attitude towards me were not like a genin who had just graduated from a ninja school. Instead, he was like a veteran who had been wandering in the ninja world for several years. If we meet them right after entering the Forest of Death, they won't trust us enough. So, let's set collecting scrolls as our #1 goal. Kabuto adjusted his glasses, and the sun reflected a ray of light on the lenses, hiding Kabuto's eyes, making people unable to see what Kabuto was thinking. Compared to red copper armor and Mei Cheng, Kabuto's status in Orochimaru's eyes was slightly higher. This is why red copper armor always unconsciously showed a sense of awe to Kabuto, and the higher the status, the more information he naturally knows. Although it's not very clear what Orochimaru is going to do in the Forest of Death, Kabuto still knows that Orochimaru used special means to pull off the face of a ninja from Kusanagi village. When Mei Cheng and red copper armor heard that Kabuto agreed with their suggestion, they were also relieved. Although they don't know Kabuto's specific strength, Mei Cheng and red copper armor have already reached the level of Chunin strength. With such strength, it's really easy to deal with these immature genin participating in the Chunin exam. As long as they find the right soft persimmon, passing the exam is simply a simple matter. However, just as the three of them were discussing their next course of action, Nangongja had already sneaked up to them. Kabuto is indeed a strong ninja. Combining his combat power and medical ninjutsu, he can probably be regarded as a special jonin, but Nangongja himself is not affected by chakra, and he is careful enough when moving, and he directly arrived beside the three of them. The conversation between the three of them entered Nangongja's ears without missing a single word. Orochimaru? These three people are all Orochimaru's spies. Nangongja's mind flashed with the cold man during the Shinobi World War. Orochimaru was forced to escape from the wood leaf because of the human experiment. Nangongja naturally knew about such a big matter, but now, Root's people are actually covering up their information. Does this prove that whether it was the human experiment or the current plan against the wood leaf, Danzo and Orochimaru have always been in contact with each other? Nangongja took out a mask from his arms, and took off his almost iconic robe. He was ready to catch all three of them, and let Ibiki, who was depressed before, use his torture ability. He thought that Ibiki would be very grateful to him, right? Nangongja quickly circulated his internal force in his body, and his speed was almost comparable to a ninja's body flicker technique. He directly appeared behind Mei Cheng, and directly chopped her neck, causing her to faint. And when their teammate was suddenly attacked, it naturally alarmed Kabuto and red copper armor. The two of them took out their weapons and looked at Nangongja, who had knocked Jian Meicheng to the ground. "Who are you?" Red copper armor said to the masked man who had knocked out his teammate. Nangongja didn't pay attention to red copper armor's question. Instead, he continued his actions, and in a flash, he appeared behind red copper armor. Obviously, it was the same method, but because of Nangongja's extremely fast speed, it was successful. When Nangongja looked at Kabuto, he found that Kabuto had turned into a small green snake. This is really... Did I underestimate this spy? However, capturing two people like Mei Cheng and red copper armor is enough to prove the relationship between Orochimaru and Danzo, isn't it? Therefore, Nangongja wasn't worried about Kabuto escaping, he was just a small character. Chapter 282. In the Forest of Death, Naruto's group was moving slowly and cautiously toward the depths of the forest. Not far behind them, a man dressed like a ninja of the Kusanagi country was squatting on a tree, staring at the three young ninjas, as if he was looking at something interesting. Like most ninjas, this ninja also hid his face in the shadow of his clothes and the hat on his head, but even such a shadow couldn't cover his strange eyes. The yellow eyes with a little gray became like a snake's vertical pupils, and the emotions revealed in his eyes were as sinister and cunning as a snake. Just when he saw that Naruto seemed to find an excuse to go somewhere else to solve his physiological problem, this person with snake-like eyes seemed to feel that his opportunity has arrived. He bit his finger in his mouth and wiped it on his palm, then his hand began to form hand seals quickly. Although he only formed a few hand seals, anyone who is proficient in ninjutsu can see that these are the hand seals of the summoning jutsu. However, just as the psychic seal was about to be completed, the snake-eyed man's hands suddenly stopped. He took out a kunai from his arms with a little doubt and found that there was an extremely unnatural crack on his kunai. The man seemed to be in a bad mood, then he said, "Are these people all idiots? Such a simple task actually went wrong. I thought that Kabuto was worth training, but now it seems that I still have to think about it." After saying that, he glanced at Sasuke, who was waiting for Naruto to solve his physiological problem in the forest with a trace of reluctance. The snake-eyed man left the branch where he was hiding and ran in one direction. Kabuto looked nervously at the forest around him, as if he was afraid of something. Originally, Kuroto, and Mei's identities could be said to be flawless. Even if there were many Umbu investigating them before the exam, Kuroto, and Kuroto were able to pass all kinds of investigations with the help of fake information and Danzo. After passing the first round of the exam with much difficulty, they entered the second round of the exam. As long as he could successfully collect the scrolls, he would be able to give up on the examination when he reached the central tower. But for some reason, such a simple plan was disrupted by the sudden appearance of a masked man. Moreover, what's more terrifying is that this masked man directly used his speed to knock out his two temporary teammates. Even with his many years of experience, he still couldn't see through this person's background. This was the most frightening thing for Medicine Master Bag. I hope you can find a suitable reason for messing up my plan. Otherwise, I can only let you be my experiment instrument. Recently, due to various reasons, the experimental materials have become insufficient. With your strength, you are quite suitable to be an experimental material. A somewhat hoarse and gloomy voice came from behind Medicine Master Pocket. Medicine Master Pocket's entire body trembled, and he hurriedly half-knelt behind him. His head was so low that his neck could be seen. Orochimaru-sama. The situation has changed. Just now, a masked man kidnapped Jian Meicheng in red copper armor. I was lucky enough to escape by relying on the escape ninjutsu taught by Orochimaru-sama. Oh. Hearing Medicine Master Pocket's words, Orochimaru was a little surprised. Medicine Master Pocket's overall strength has reached the level of Special Jonin. Such a person actually retreated without a fight? Orochimaru also felt a little interested. Can you recognize who this person is? Medicine Master Pocket heard Orochimaru's question and naturally knew that Orochimaru was interested in the person who kidnapped his temporary teammates. This person's speed is extremely fast, and I didn't feel that he used chakra at all. I can be sure that he has reached the speed of the body flicker technique by relying on his physical fitness. And because the strength of red copper armor and Jian Meicheng is limited, he didn't reveal any more information. This person is still dressed in black clothes, wearing a mask, and putting away his hair. He is very experienced. Just by relying on such one-sided information, I can't judge who this person is for the time being. Orochimaru didn't scold Medicine Master Pocket for not getting more information. Instead, he rubbed his chin with his hand, as if he wanted to find someone from his memory who fits Medicine Master Pocket's description more closely, but he found that many people only fit one of the information. Either they are not strong enough, or they are not as cautious as this person. But Orochimaru is also a person who can see the overall situation, and soon he didn't care about the identity of the attacker. Get up. It's already good that you were able to leave so decisively and inform me of this information. It doesn't matter that Jian Meicheng and Crimson Copper Armor were captured. The information they know is really little. At most, they know your and my identity and our interest in Sasuke. It doesn't matter. But you don't need to take the exam this time, just give up your current identity and go outside to prepare for the next mission. Orochimaru told Kabuto about the new task, and Kabuto himself was trained as a spy, so losing an exposed identity was not a big deal. So, he directly jumped away from Orochimaru. Orochimaru whispered softly in the same place, "It seems that this Chunin exam is really interesting. There was information before that the old pervert has also returned to Woodleaf, so now the Kage-level ninjas in Woodleaf are 3 generations, Minato, Watergate, and Jiraiya? It seems that the materials for that jutsu need to start accumulating, otherwise, it will be easy to fall into a passive situation." After that, Orochimaru also turned into many small snakes and disappeared. At this time, Nangongja also sent the 2 spies he knocked out to Anko. Anko seemed to have found the body of a hidden, faceless Kusanagi, and her whole body trembled as if she remembered something unpleasant. Chapter 283. In the Hokage's office, Watergate was sitting in his chair, looking at Nangongja, Ibiki, and Anko standing in front of him. His expression was a bit gloomy. Obviously, he wasn't in a good mood. "Ibiki. What's the result of the interrogation?" Minato suddenly asked Ibiki. Ibiki's originally very serious face had a drop of cold sweat at this moment. He was just a ninja who presided over the interrogation, but the things he interrogated had a lot of implications. This made Ibiki feel a lot of pressure. Ibiki's face was originally very serious, but at this moment, a drop of cold sweat was dripping down his face. Originally, he thought that he could pretend to be an ostrich for a while and let Nangongja and Anko speak first, but now that Watergate called him out, Ibiki had no choice but to speak. The interrogation has been completed, and these 2 spies have already gotten a lot of information with the help of the Yamanaka clan. What is certain is that these 2 people are indeed spies left by Orochimaru in the Woodleaf. Although they are only genin over the years, they have also provided a lot of information about the Woodleaf to Orochimaru. This time, the task of participating in the Chunin exam is to complete Orochimaru's task of connecting with the orphan of the Uchiha clan, Uchiha Sasuke. As he said that, Ibiki's forehead was full of sweat. Obviously, he felt that the next words were not so easy to say. Watergate also saw Ibiki's embarrassment. According to Watergate's usual temperament, he wouldn't force Ibiki to say the next words, but obviously, at the moment when the Woodleaf was about to be invaded, Watergate's attitude was a lot tougher, and he said to Ibiki with a serious face, "Why are you hesitating? Just say what you want to say." Ibiki was also slightly frightened by Minato's seriousness at this moment. He forcibly suppressed the messy thoughts in his mind, cleared his throat, and seemed to be organizing his words. Finally, he opened his mouth and said, "Don't worry." According to the testimony of these 2 people, it seems that Root is also involved in this operation. It was Root who came forward to cover up their information, and they were able to pass all kinds of assessments to enter the Chunin exam. But this information can't be confirmed yet, so our interrogation department is still suspicious of such information. Although he said that he was suspicious, how could Ibiki not pay attention to such information when interrogating these 2 people? He constantly let the Yamanaka clan use psychic secret technique to explore the memories of these 2 people, and now these 2 people are almost like fools. But because of his position, Ibiki absolutely can't directly point the spear at Danzo, so he added the words of suspicion. Watergate's reaction, Ibiki's S, but the clenched fists on the table can't prove that Watergate wasn't as calm as he appeared. Shuego looked at Anko and asked, "What do you think?" Is there any information on the second exam site? Enko's eyes were also in a trance, and her pupils were even a little lax, but when she heard Watergate's question, she forced herself to focus and said to Watergate, "We found a place where a Kusanagi ninja participating in the exam had his face peeled off using a secret technique. Because of my familiarity with Orochimaru, I know that he has sneaked into the exam venue. Not long ago, we also sent a team of ninjas to explore the Forest of Death and found that Uchiha Sasuke of Team 7 has been cursed and is still in a coma." After saying that, it seems that the curse mark left by Orochimaru's experiment also began to move, making Enko's face look very painful. Hearing the words Team 7, Watergate's expression also changed. Isn't his son also in Team 7? What about the others in the same team? Enko thought for a while and said to Watergate, "Uzumaki Naruto and Uchiha Sasuke of the same team seem to have fallen into a coma. The Umbu ninja seems to have found traces of the Nine Tails chakra outbreak around them. But now it's certain that neither Uzumaki Naruto nor Uchiha Sasuke's life is in danger. Haruno Sakura also showed excellent medical skills and performed timely rescue. The Umbu has sent a team to follow them. Once there is any situation that may endanger their lives, the Umbu will directly take action. As a member of Woodleaf, Naruto's identity and importance are naturally well known, so after Enko found traces of Orochimaru, she immediately transferred an Umbu team to Naruto's vicinity. That's good. Enko and Ibiki, you can leave for now. Nangong, stay for a while, I have something to tell you. After Enko and Ibiki bowed to Watergate, they also left respectfully. Nangongja saw that both of them had left, so he found a sofa and sat down casually. Did you contact the little girl from Uzumaki clan? Watergate saw Nangongja's casual attitude and didn't have any disgust. Instead, he asked his own question. Not yet. When I found these two little mice, I immediately came to report. And I think it's better for Kushina to get in touch with this child than for me, isn't it? Nangongja said to Watergate, and at the same time made his own suggestion. Watergate also frowned, but he felt that letting Nangongja contact such a little girl is indeed a bit of a waste of talent, so he nodded and said to Nangongja, "Well, I will ask Shina Kushina to contact this child. Now that we know that Orochimaru has sneaked into Woodleaf, I have a more important task for you. As long as you complete this task, even if the plan to attack Woodleaf is really unfortunately carried out, our losses will be reduced a lot." With that said, Shui Men took out a map from his desk and handed it to Nangongja, then he instructed, "Don't worry, Nangongja. You also know the target of the task. When the time comes, just explain the situation to him directly." Nangongja nodded and left Watergate's office. Walking to the door of the Hokage office, Nangongja opened the map in his hand, but he found that the map in his hand was actually the map of Woodleaf Village, but there were many places marked with red crosses. Why is the marked place not a pub but a bathhouse? Nangongja sighed, but he also vaguely knew who he was going to look for to help Woodleaf. This person is indeed outstanding, but his character. Chapter 284. Although Nangongja has been in Woodleaf for a long time, he's not the kind of person who likes to go out with others. Except for some famous commercial streets in Woodleaf, Nangongja is familiar with, he only knows the general location of other places. This may be one of the reasons why Nangongja doesn't have a wide range of friends in Woodleaf. The map that Watergate gave to Nangongja basically marked all the large and small pubs and baths in Woodleaf. As a village with a large population, there are a lot of such entertainment places. Maybe Nangongja's luck isn't so good, but he didn't find Jiraiya even after walking half a circle around Woodleaf. Nangongja also felt a little tired, so he casually sat on a bench on the side of the road and prepared to sit down and rest. Looking at the pedestrians in front of him and the surrounding green trees and fragrant grass, Nangongja suddenly felt very comfortable. Originally, Nangongja still cared about the mission and some other troublesome matters, but now, he temporarily pushed them out of his mind. Forget it. Anyway, I'm not in a hurry. According to my speculation, Orochimaru's plan should be at least in the second half of the Chunin exam. At that time, all the important people will gather. This is the best time to act. Now, even if I find Jiraiya, with Orochimaru's hiding method, it won't be easy for anyone to find him, right? Perhaps because he convinced himself, Nangongja also took out the azure jade gourd that has been hanging on his back, opened the cork, and began to drink slowly. The azure jade gourd contains the lost drunken immortal wine. The drunken immortal wine that originally came from the banishment elder has been consumed by Nangongja. Under the urging of the liquor worm in his stomach, Nangongja has been staring at Aoki Jar after dealing with the affairs in the Blood Cloak Pavilion, hoping that Aoki Jar can make the drunken immortal wine. After referring to many ancient books in the Blood Cloak Pavilion, he finally made a wine similar to the drunken immortal wine. As soon as the cork was opened, the fragrance of the wine directly floated out of the azure jade gourd. Unlike ordinary wine, the aroma of the drunken immortal brew formed a white mist in the air and drifted in all directions. The people who passed by Nangongja only smelled the fragrance of the wine, but many of their faces turned a little pink, as if they were drunk. Originally, many people noticed that the azure jade gourd in Nangongja's hand was the source of the wine fragrance, but although Nangongja was just sitting there, the residents of the Woodleaf noticed that Nangongja was extraordinary. As members of the Woodleaf, although their strength may be average, their eyesight was extremely accurate. Although many people were tempted, they noticed that Nangongja's strength must be extraordinary, so they didn't dare to disturb him. If you don't believe me, you can see a group of people squatting under a tree on the corner of the street opposite Nangongja. They were trying their best to sniff the drunken immortal wine in Nangongja's hand. Nangongja was too lazy to pay attention to these people. He just held his azure jade gourd and poured a mouthful of wine into his mouth from time to time. Nangongja drank the wine in his mouth, and just as Nangongja was about to raise the azure jade gourd to his mouth again, a hand reached out from behind Nangongja and grabbed Nangongja's wrist. Hey, hey, hey. Kid, don't waste this kind of wine. Let me taste it for you. The person who spoke in a very dissolute tone, like a madman who didn't care about anything. Nangongja also saw a strand of hair on his shoulder that belonged to the person behind him. It was a strand of long white hair. So Nangongja looked back and saw a person with 2 streaks of red oil paint on his face. His white hair was a little messy, and the word "boil" was written on his forehead was standing behind him. I say, Jiraiya-sama. I haven't seen you for so long, why do you want to drink my wine? Jiraiya also looked down at Nangongja, as if he didn't recognize Nangongja. He just looked at the azure jade gourd again. Today, I don't know why, but a kid has been haunting the tavern and the bath. In order not to let this kid bring me trouble, I endured for a long time and didn't show up. But this kid actually took out such a good wine, I can't miss it, can I? Although Jiraiya kept calling him brat and brat, Nangongja knew that Jiraiya was actually clear about his plan to find him. But maybe Jiraiya didn't know why he was looking for him, so Nangongja also said to Jiraiya, actually, this kid originally wanted to find a senpai to drink with. But after looking for a long time, I didn't find this senpai at all. Everything can wait, but wine can't wait, right? Since I can't find him, I have to enjoy it myself. After all, a snake sneaked up to the tree. As a person leaning against the tree, I naturally had to enjoy myself. This snake wanted to break my back. This is a huge snake. When Jiraiya heard the word snake, the hand holding Nangongja's wrist trembled, as if he didn't think of this matter. So, Jiraiya's expression also became serious. You mean, a snake came to the Woodleaf? Not only that, many people came to the Woodleaf with the snake, they came with saws and axes. But there aren't many people looking after the tree right now. That's why I came here, hoping to find someone to look after this tree with us. Nangongja said to Jiraiya, but both of them looked calm. Obviously Jiraiya has realized the importance of this matter. A group of people led by Orochimaru wanted to destroy the wood leaf? Although Jiraiya left Konoha for various reasons, few people can surpass this former Sanin's feelings for Konoha. It seems that Watergate asked you to come to me? I also came back because I heard some rumors, but I didn't expect the situation to have reached this point. Since Watergate asked you to come to me, then I can't refuse. I will go to the Hokage's office now, and when I understand the situation, I will come to drink with you. After that, Jiraiya jumped on a nearby roof and ran all the way to the Hokage's office. Chapter 285. Looking at the Sasuke in front of her, covered with black tadpole-like runes and full of violent aura, Sakura only felt that the person in front of her was not the handsome Sasuke she knew at all. "Are you the one who hurt my teammates?" Sasuke looked at the three Otogekyur ninja in front of him with a cruel look on his face. After Sasuke and Naruto fell into a coma, Sakura had been carefully looking after the two of them, but Naruto was in a coma because of the battle with the man who claimed to be Orochimaru. Sasuke was even more dangerous. After being bitten on the neck by the man who claimed to be Orochimaru, he had been in a coma with a high fever. Sakura, who was usually the object of protection, suddenly changed her role and became the person who protected her two teammates. However, shortly after Sakura moved her two teammates into this tree hole, three Otogekyur ninja jumped out. They seemed to not only want to snatch the scroll belonging to Team 7, but also want to kill the three people of Team 7. In order to protect her teammates, Sakura had to stand up and fight these three ninja. At first, these three people didn't think highly of Sakura and only sent one person to deal with Sakura. However, Sakura was trained by Kakashi and Nangongjia after all. Not long ago, she strengthened her beliefs with the help of Nangongjia. When the real battle started, Sakura directly suppressed the Otogekyur ninja who was sent to fight with her. Seeing that their teammates couldn't attack, the other two Otogekyur ninja couldn't sit still and joined the battle together. If it was a one-on-one, Sakura had the confidence to win. But when these three ninja came up to fight with Sakura together, Sakura could only barely protect herself. Under the special sonic attack of Otogekyur, Sakura also suffered a lot of injuries. Whether it was her nose or ears, they began to bleed. After that, Ino, Sakura's former classmate and one of her best friends, also jumped out with her teammates to help Sakura resist the attacks of these three Otogekyur ninja. The battle barely maintained a balance. At this time, Sasuke, who was still in a deep coma with a high fever, woke up. Moreover, Sasuke's body was covered with black runes from the initial bite, which made Sasuke's appearance look very strange. Sasuke's special state not only made Konoha's ninjas stop their movements, but also made Otogekyur's ninjas look surprised. Curse Seal was not so unfamiliar to several people from Otogekyur. You know, among the ninjas of Otogekyur, the 5 ninjas of Otogekyur were all people with Curse Seal. And Sasuke's body was now covered with black runes, which was the appearance of the first stage of Curse Seal. This made the 3 ninjas of Otogekyur, who didn't know what happened, a little dazed. But the ninjas of Otogekyur didn't move, but it didn't mean that Sasuke didn't move. At this moment, Sasuke's eyes have automatically turned into the 2 Tomo Sharingan state, and the 2 Tomo were spinning quickly. Sasuke only felt that his heart seemed to be ignited by a flame. When his eyes looked at the 3 Otogekyur ninjas who hurt his companions, the emotion of wanting to tear them apart couldn't be suppressed. So, Sasuke decided to dispel this feeling in his heart. Beyond his usual speed, Sasuke quickly came behind an Otogekyur ninja, grabbed the ninja's 2 wrists with his hands, and stepped on the man's back with his feet. Sasuke said to the ninja who was caught by him, "It was your hands that injured my companion, wasn't it?" Before the ninja of Otogekyur could respond, Sasuke had already pulled the man's arm in his direction with both hands. The huge force directly dislocated the ninja of Otogekyure's arm. Such severe pain made the ninja of Otogekyure scream loudly, and a layer of hazy sweat appeared on his forehead because of the severe pain. Such a miserable scream naturally reached Sasuke's ears, but such a harsh sound made Sasuke feel an indescribable pleasure. Sasuke's heart was eager to hear more of such sounds. But how could he increase the number of such sounds? Sasuke's eyes were a little puzzled, and he tilted his head slightly as if he was thinking. It didn't take long for Sasuke's eyes to light up. Letting go of the ninja's hands under his feet, Sasuke reached his hand to the ninja tool bag behind him, and a kunai was in Sasuke's hand. His eyes wandered around the body of the Otogekyure ninja under his feet. Finally, as if he had chosen a target, he directly inserted the kunai in his hand between the ribs of the ninja under him. Because it could avoid the ribs, the kunai quickly inserted itself deeply into the Otogekyure ninja. As Sasuke expected, the ninja did start to roar violently, but Sasuke gradually felt a little tired. Just this kind of roar was not enough for him to enjoy. Sasuke only held the handle of the kunai with his hand and began to rotate the kunai in his flesh. The width of the kunai was greater than the distance between the ribs, so when rotating the kunai inserted in the flesh, the Otogekyure ninja's ribs were inevitably damaged, and some broken bones were also inserted into the Otogekyure ninja's lungs. Whether it was the bone stubble inserted into the lungs or the kunai deeply inserted into the flesh, the Otogekyure ninja felt that breathing was getting more and more difficult, and there was a burning sensation in the lungs. The screams were getting louder and louder, but they slowly became smaller because of the hand on the lungs. In the end, only the sound of ragged breathing was left. Chapter 286. The Sound Ninja team was composed of 2 men and 1 woman, and the one whose hands were destroyed by Sasuke just now was a sound ninja named Sak. As ninja from Orochimaru's ninja village, although the 3 of them were a team, they didn't have the kind of mutual trust and interdependence that Wood Leaf's ninja team advocated. Instead, each of them was on guard. Between the choice of protecting their teammates and protecting themselves, they didn't hesitate to choose the latter. Just like now, the remaining 1 man and 1 woman in the Sound Ninja team didn't have the desire to save their teammates under Sasuke's aggressive gaze. Instead, they hoped that Sasuke could choose the other one of them to attack, and then escape in the chaos. After watching for a long time, Sasuke turned his gaze to the female ninja named Gold among the 2. He twisted his neck, and the cervical vertebrae made a crack sound. Sasuke was ready to make a move, but just as Sasuke took a step, a voice sounded behind Sasuke. Enough. This Sasuke is not the person I know. The person who shouted was naturally Sakura. Although Sasuke was usually cold to people and somewhat eccentric, he wasn't such a madman who enjoyed torturing others. At the beginning, Sakura saw Sasuke wake up, and her heart was inevitably filled with joy. But the first thing Sasuke did after waking up was to attack the ninjas who besieged him. No, the word attack shouldn't be used, it should be abuse. Sasuke abused the ninjas who attacked Sakura, and as the abuser, he didn't have the slightest bit of guilt. Instead, he seemed to enjoy the opponent's wailing and used various means to torture these opponents. Such a person was more like a madman than a person. How could a person who had lost his soul and was only venting his inner beastly nature be the person he had been watching all this time? Therefore, when Sasuke was about to attack the female ninja among the Sound Ninjas, Sakura could no longer suppress her inner resistance to Sasuke's current appearance, and such words directly blurted out. Sasuke also heard his teammates' organization and turned his head to look at Sakura. His originally handsome face was covered in black runes, making him look exceptionally ferocious. His original handsome appearance was nowhere to be seen. Sasuke's eyes were also filled with a strong madness. He stared at Sakura with a little doubt and said to Sakura, "What are you talking about? Why are you stopping me? I'm doing this for you. A bunch of trash like you actually dared to hurt my teammates. Naturally, I want them to have a taste of the bitter consequences of doing such a thing." I'm clearly helping you vent your anger. Why are you stopping me? Sasuke's words were justified, as if everything he did was reasonable, but Sakura stopped him, which made Sasuke feel incomprehensible. Sakura looked at Sasuke blankly, as if she didn't react to Sasuke's answer. She could only slowly walk in front of Sasuke. The three sound ninja were directly ignored by Sakura, because Sasuke was now the person she cared about the most. She gently placed her hand on Sasuke's face, and her fingertips brushed across the black lines on Sasuke's face. Sasuke's body was still very hot, obviously, the high fever had not subsided. Because the high fever took away a lot of water from Sasuke's body, Sasuke's skin became extremely dry, and Sakura also felt the roughness from Sasuke's skin. What kind of thing can make you like this? The Sasuke I know is very proud and stubborn. He used his expressionless face to cover his scarred heart in front of people again and again. However, I don't hate Sasuke like that. Because even after experiencing a lot of things that ordinary people can't accept, the Sasuke I know can still face everything bravely. So, I like Sasuke the most. Sakura has never concealed her feelings for Sasuke. At the beginning, Sakura was just like Ino. In fact, she was very curious about this handsome classmate. Under a sense of competition with her friends, Sakura began to want to get close to Sasuke and understand Sasuke. If she really liked a person for so many years, how could Sakura not understand everything that happened to Sasuke? Although because of the deliberate cover-up by the senior management of Woodleaf, Sakura was not so clear about what happened to Sasuke. But Sakura knew that Sasuke lost his family, his clan, and everything he was familiar with since childhood overnight. Putting herself in other people's shoes, Sakura felt that if she encountered such a thing, she didn't know when she would have completely lost her mind. Sasuke, on the other hand, resisted such grief. Although he hid his true feelings and turned into a cold face, Sakura felt that she liked this strong boy more and more. Now do you still have a trace of the Sasuke I like? You completely indulged your desire to destroy and reduced yourself to a beast. When you cause harm to others, don't you also cut your own humanity piece by piece? Although we are ninjas, we have to be human first. No matter what happens, I only beg that the Sasuke I know can reappear in front of me, okay? Looking at Sasuke, Sakura abandoned the original girl's reserve and shyness, and described all her feelings one by one. When she asked the last question, Sakura's voice was replaced by choking. Tears rolled out of her eyes and flowed on her face that became dirty because of the battle. Sasuke didn't speak, he just put his hand on Sakura's face and wiped away the tears on Sakura's face. His eyes, which were originally filled with frenzied emotions, became clear at this moment. Sasuke's mouth opened again and again, but there was no way to say any words. Although they didn't speak, there was an inexplicable agreement between the two, as if everything was clear in their hearts. Sasuke seemed to think of something, his eyes flashed with a trace of struggle, and he took back his hand that was on Sakura's face. Turning around to restrain his emotions, he coldly spoke to Zack and his two other party members who had both his hands crippled by him. Get lost. Daoist and Jean seemed to have been pardoned, their eyes were full of excitement. The two of them picked up their teammate who had fainted on the ground and immediately left this place. Sakura saw that the three of them had gone far, and immediately turned her eyes to Sasuke, as if she had some questions to ask Sasuke. But Sasuke turned his head and glanced at Sakura, and his body softened and fell directly to the ground. Chapter 287. In the place where the Umbu team was hiding, Nangongja and Enko stood together, watching what happened between Sakura, Sasuke, and the Sound Ninja. With Enko and Nangongja's hearing, the conversation between the children could still be heard clearly. Enko looked at Sakura and Sasuke, who fell to the ground, with a dull face, and muttered to herself, "Are the children now so powerful? How old are they to confess like this? Oh my God!" If I had such courage back then, I wouldn't have been a leftover woman for so long. Although she was muttering to herself, Nangongzhe was so close to Anko after all, so he heard it clearly. Seeing Anko's dull face, with a slightly envious look, Nangongzhe couldn't help but cast a very strange look at Anko. Such a person who was trained by a person like Orochimaru, how could he still have such feelings of yearning? Anko obviously felt Nangongzhe's strange look, and also looked back at Nangongzhe, as if saying to Nangongzhe, although this girl's personality is a bit special, who isn't a girl who yearns for love? Nangongzhe himself wasn't so familiar with Anko. This involved personal emotional issues. Nangongzhe didn't have any position and experience to talk to Anko, so he still put away his gaze. At the same time, Red Bean secretly decided to seal away all the romance novels she had collected. It was all Red's fault for recommending these books to her, causing her to become like this. She was actually mocked by someone she wasn't that familiar with. Nangongzhe asked seriously while Red Bean was still indulging in her imagination. Nangongzhe asked Red Bean seriously, "Are those black lines on Uchiha Sasuke's body the curse seal you mentioned?" Red Bean also knew that now was not the time to let her imagination run wild, so she replied to Nangongzhe with a serious expression. "Indeed, that is the curse seal. I was originally Orochimaru's disciple, and Orochimaru once injected such a curse seal into my body. But the curse seal on Uchiha Sasuke's body is still somewhat different from the curse seal on my body. Obviously, Orochimaru has perfected the curse seal a lot over the years." With that, Anko also covered her neck with her hand, as if she could feel the original pain now. Why was Sasuke's mental state so strange just now? I also taught Sasuke. Although this child's character has some problems, he can't reach the point of madness just now. Is this also because of the so-called curse seal? Nangongzhe seemed to remember Sasuke's out-of-control appearance just now, and said his speculation to Anko. Anko also nodded in surprise, looking at Nangongzhe, who was not familiar with the curse seal, but guessed the characteristics of the curse seal. "Indeed, in fact, Woodleaf has been studying the curse seal on my body for so many years. After all, the curse seal is not only a physical burden for me, but also a mental burden. But whether it is the curse seal on my body or the improved version of the curse seal on Sasuke, after the outbreak, there will be a special chakra wandering around the body. This kind of chakra not only strengthens a person's body, but also causes a certain degree of stimulation to the brain. It makes a person's inner negative emotions erupt in a large number. Sasuke's experience must have accumulated a lot of negative emotions, so it is normal for such a loss of control to occur." Anko's answer was very pertinent, which also explained why Sasuke could recover under Sakura's words. His body was filled with negative emotions. When Sakura said such words to Sasuke, it was tantamount to tearing a hole in the darkness of Sasuke's heart, allowing Sasuke to recover his consciousness. After the commotion was over, the second round of the exam was back on track. Sasuke and Naruto also woke up one after another. After some bumps, the three of them finally walked to the center of the Forest of Death with 2 scrolls. Of course, Nangongzhe was also there to welcome all the ninjas who passed the second exam, watching them enter the tower one by one with the scrolls they collected. Unsurprisingly, Kabuto didn't appear among the people who passed. Obviously, he had found an opportunity to hide himself. After that, it was naturally because the number of people who passed the second exam exceeded expectations. Under the invigilation of Hayate Gecko, a group of genin began to compete for the quota of the third exam. Nangongzhe didn't pay attention to these genin. After all, these people's battles weren't worth the attention of a ninja like Nangongzhe. Except for the guidance of each team and the team leader ninja sent by each village, almost no one cares about the battle between genin. When Nangongzhe looked around at all the ninjas present, he didn't find anything special, so his interest was pitiful. After the end of his battle, Sasuke, accompanied by Kakashi, also carried out a seal on his body to a certain extent. Outside the original 3 tomo-shaped curse seals, there was a circle of runes forming a seal. But to be honest, for Orochimaru's meticulously studied curse seals, such a seal was just a layer of paper insurance. The qualifier ended quickly, and the list of people who passed was quickly announced. Uzumaki Naruto, Hyuga Neji, Uchiha Sasuke, Nara Shikamaru, Haruno Sakura, and Aburame Shino officially entered the 3rd exam as Woodleaf ninjas. Temari, Gaara, and Kankuro officially entered the 3rd exam as Sand ninjas. Toth from Sound Ninja became the only ninja who didn't come from any of the 5 major villages to enter the 3rd exam. To be honest, Nangongja was a little surprised that Sakura and Toth could enter the last round of the exam. Sakura's opponent was her best friend, one of the successors of Ino Shikacho, Ino Yamanaka. In the face of Ino's spiritual ninjutsu attack, Sakura showed her tenacity, and under Nangongja's training, her taijutsu became very powerful, which also laid the cornerstone of Sakura's victory. As for Toth, it was entirely because of Akimichi Choji's abnormal performance that he smoothly entered the 3rd exam. At this point, the 2nd exam officially ended. Chapter 288. After the end of the qualifiers, the ninjas who passed were naturally happy. But for them, this is just the beginning. Because there will be a more important 3rd official exam that will determine whether they can become a ninja or not, every ninja who participated in the exam was reminded by their instructor or teacher about the importance of the 3rd exam. Standing on the 2nd floor of the central tower, the Sand Ninja's teacher, Baki, was frowning at this moment. He seemed to be thinking about the 3rd exam, but who knows what he was thinking about. Tosu, who was qualified for the 3rd exam, looked around with a blank face because Otogekyur didn't have a teacher to come to the central tower to see who passed smoothly. But no one cared about why no one from Otogekyur was here to watch. After all, although the Chunin exam was taken by 6 countries together, the real protagonists were the 2 major ninja villages, Woodleaf and Sand Ninja. On the contrary, the ninja from Kyuzugakyur, who was thought to be a dark horse, didn't qualify for the 3rd exam, which was very surprising. Nangongja has been looking at the red-haired girl among the ninja from Kyuzugakyur. This is the girl that Watergate is very concerned about, Uzumaki Karen, who is likely to be the orphan of the Uzumaki clan. Soon, the 4th Hokage Minato announced the official end of the qualifiers, and announced the schedule of the 3rd Chunin exam, as well as the order of the participants. All the ninjas in the tower dispersed in an uproar. On the contrary, a man in a black robe, who had been standing behind Watergate, slowly walked toward the direction where the ninjas from Kyuzugakyur gathered. Along with him were the Umbu who belonged to Watergate. When the team leader of Kyuzugakyur saw the people from Woodleaf walking toward him, he was still wary and surprised. After all, such a big ninja village suddenly sent such a group of people toward him. Anyone would be faintly on guard. But when the Umbu whispered to the team leader of Kyuzugakyur, he could only nod and then look at the girl in his team with a pitiful look. She obviously suffered a lot and looked a little timid. Karen looked at her team leader. There was no resentment in her eyes after being abandoned. Instead, there was a feeling of relief. In Kyuzugakyur, Karen has always been a dispensable character. The reason why Karen can come to Woodleaf to participate in such a grand Chunin exam is actually because Karen's 2 teammates are particularly excellent. In order to ensure the integrity of the 3-person team, Kyuzugakyur brought such a girl who only knows a little sealing technique and has no combat power to Woodleaf. Now, Konoha's Umbu obviously came for this dispensable girl. Konoha's Umbu didn't have any outstanding performance, so Konoha wouldn't have a conflict with a big ninja like Konoha. Although she didn't care that she was abandoned by Kyuzugakyur, Karen still had a trace of fear in her heart. After all, a powerful force like Woodleaf was eyeing her, and they didn't even hesitate to bear the possibility of conflict between her and Kyuzugakyur's alliance. This made Karen begin to reflect on what she has that Woodleaf is eyeing. Could it be the special ability that he has been hiding all this time? But just for such an ability, would Konoha really covet it to this point? Karen followed Woodleaf's Umbu to a secret room in the central tower with fear, but one of Karen's hands was behind her back. Although Karen doesn't think that she can compete with Woodleaf's Umbu, once she finds out that something is wrong, although Karen doesn't think that she can compete with Woodleaf's Umbu, she can still slit her neck to avoid humiliation. The man who had been wearing a black robe and hadn't spoken a word waved his hand. Several dark ops respectfully saluted and immediately retreated. Seeing that everyone had walked out, the black-robed man finally opened his mouth to speak. Hello. Karen, unlike Karen's imagination, the man shrouded in the black robe is not a disgusting uncle, but has a very beautiful voice. This is a woman with a very outstanding life. As a ninja, the most basic ability to observe people's expressions, Karen instantly labeled the person opposite her in her heart. You are? Karen was very frightened and uneasy, but at this moment, she doesn't know why, but a voice in her heart told her that she can completely relax in front of this person. This strange feeling made Karen feel that the person in front of her wasn't someone who could threaten her life. Instead, she felt more like a close relative that she was very familiar with. The black-robed woman standing in front of Karen also reached out with her slender hand to remove the black hood covering her face. The first thing that was revealed was a head of long red hair. Karen looked at the long red hair and felt so familiar, because Karen also has such long red hair. Not only the color, but also the luster and texture made Karen feel that this long hair is the same as her own. The feeling of closeness in her heart became more and more intense with the smile on the face of the woman opposite her, making Karen even have the impulse to call her mother. I am your relative. I am a descendant of the Uzumaki clan, my name is Uzumaki Shinakushina. That's right, standing in front of Karen is Woodleaf's fourth Hokage, Watergate's wife, Uzumaki Naruto's mother, Uzumaki Shinakushina. Even Nangongja didn't expect that just after he gave such a suggestion to Watergate, Shinakushina directly appeared in the second exam, and even immediately found Karen after the exam. Hearing the name Shinakushina, Karen was stunned for a while. Uzumaki. An indescribable sadness surged from Karen's heart, as if a wanderer who left home finally returned to his hometown. The attachment and sense of belonging from the bloodline filled Karen's heart, and Karen's body uncontrollably walked towards Shinakushina step by step, and the eyes hidden behind the glasses were also covered with a layer of mist. Chapter 289. Shinakushina herself is a mother. When she saw Karen's tearful appearance, the motherly feeling in her heart instantly surged to her heart. Shinakushina thought of the difficult situation when she and Naruto were young. At that time, it was so difficult for her to raise Naruto alone. The girl in front of her, named Karen, seems to have parents who died very early, and she has always been bullied by other children in the village when she was in Kyusugakure. Such a girl has experienced so many sad experiences, but she still lived to the present, which made Shinakushina feel very distressed for this child. Seeing Karen slowly walking towards her, Shinakushina walked directly in front of Karen in a few steps and hugged Karen in her arms. Karen didn't expect that the person opposite her would hold her in her arms directly. According to her usual character, she would push this person away directly, but Karen didn't have such an idea at all. Instead, she buried her head deeply in Shinakushina's arms, and didn't want to break free at all. In the original manga, Karen was directly loyal to Sasuke just because she was saved by Sasuke from a bear. No matter how Sasuke treated her, she never left him. It's not only because of a girl's attachment to Sasuke, but more importantly, because Karen has always been in a situation where she lacks someone to love her. When Sasuke simply gave a helping hand, Karen's affection for Sasuke soared in her heart. Compared to Sasuke, who has no blood relationship with her, Shinakushina, who has a blood connection with her and is full of motherly brilliance, that kind of attachment is simply beyond anything. Mom, Karen seemed to be intoxicated in a dream that was difficult to break free from, and she murmured to herself. Shina Kushina was also very surprised by Karen's reaction, but in a flash, she understood Karen's mentality. Such a child who has suffered so much neglect was comforted by Shina Kushina at this moment. It was completely understandable that she would call out like this. Therefore, Shina Kushina also put her hand on Karen's head, slowly stroking the red hair that was similar to her own hair, and said very gently to Karen, "Good child. Mom is here, don't be afraid of anything." In fact, Karen was also aware of her address. Calling out to Shina Kushina like this also made Karen feel very scared. She was afraid that Shina Kushina would say something to her that might hurt her heart. But Shina Kushina's response made Karen's heart closer to Shina Kushina. Her heart, which had been tightly shut, opened up in an instant. "Mom. Mom. Mom." As if confirming, Karen shouted again and again. The more she shouted, the more tears in Karen's eyes. In the end, her small face was full of tears. Shina Kushina wasn't impatient at all. She just responded, and her hand slowly stroked Karen's head and back, trying to make Karen feel comforted. Naruto looked at Watergate, who was sitting opposite him. His expression wasn't so good. After all, Naruto still had some conflict with his father in his heart. Watergate, who was sitting opposite Naruto, was very uncomfortable being looked at by Naruto like this. After all, this was his child. But being looked at with such hostility, no matter how optimistic Watergate was, it was still very uncomfortable. But Naruto still didn't understand his father's thoughts. He just put on a cold face and said to Watergate with a strange tone, "Aren't you so busy as Hokage today? He actually went home during the day. That's really rare." Watergate heard such words and didn't know how to answer. He could only scratch his head and say to Naruto, "Shina Kushina seems to have something important to announce, so she asked me to go home quickly." Counting the time, "We should be home soon." Naruto heard that it was his mother's arrangement and didn't say much. There was no more conversation between the two, and the entire living room was shrouded in an awkward atmosphere. But this awkwardness didn't last long. Soon the sound of the key opening the door clearly appeared in the ears of the two. Knowing that their mother and wife had returned home, Naruto and Watergate also walked near the entrance, ready to welcome Shina Kushina home. The door was quickly opened. Shina Kushina saw Watergate and Naruto and said kindly, "I'm back," but Watergate and Naruto didn't look at Shina Kushina. Instead, they looked at a girl with conspicuous long red hair behind Shina Kushina. "Shina Kushina. You are?" Naruto didn't know Karen, but Watergate knew this child. Although he did let his wife contact this child who was also of the Uzumaki bloodline, he didn't expect Shina Kushina to bring Karen directly to his home. And Karen seemed to feel that Watergate and Naruto didn't like her, and she also seemed to faintly know the identity of Watergate. She also shrank her body behind Shina Kushina and said to Shina Kushina timidly, "Mom." Hearing such a title, Watergate and Naruto's eyes widened as if they hadn't reacted yet. And seeing the appearance of Naruto and Watergate, Shina Kushina's fiery temper was also directly displayed. Her long hair fluttered without wind, and she said to Naruto and Watergate, "What's wrong? You don't like it? From now on, Karen is my daughter, the child of Minato and Watergate, and also the elder sister of Uzumaki and Naruto. Do you understand?" Although Shina Kushina had turned into the state of a blood-red pepper, Naruto and Watergate still didn't seem to have recovered from the shock. They still looked a little silly. Shina Kushina's forehead directly appeared with a big, 2 character. Obviously, she was angered by the attitude of the two. She raised her voice and shouted at Watergate and Naruto, "Do you understand?" Watergate reacted faster than Naruto. He said to Shina Kushina with a difficult expression, "After all, this child is an official ninja of Kyuzugakure." Suddenly, she was stopped by Woodleaf and even became the adopted daughter of Hokage. Isn't it a bit, not good? Shina Kushina glared at Watergate, then said, that's your problem. From now on, Karen is my daughter. No matter what you do, Karen will never leave Woodleaf. After saying that, she directly took Karen's hand and led her into the house. Chapter 290. For Watergate, this period of time is indeed a bit of a headache. After all, Woodleaf has to face the attack of Tsunegakure, Orochimaru, and possibly even Akatsuki. And even inside Woodleaf, Danzo, this old guy, may have some bad ideas. But for the reputation and majesty of Woodleaf, Watergate can't suspend the Chunin exam, which will gather a lot of important tasks. These days, Watergate has been trying his best to win over all forces that may help him and carry out various transactions with these families that value their own interests. This has already put a lot of pressure on Watergate, and now his wife wants him to take a registered ninja of Kyuzugakure as his adopted daughter. Watergate's head is about to explode, but in the face of his wife's request, Watergate has no way to refuse. There is no way, he can only find ways to solve these problems by himself. Naruto, on the other hand, was even more dumbfounded. How did he get such a cheap sister without knowing it? And looking at Karen's appearance, she is too similar to his mother. They both have red hair, and although her personality seems to be a little timid, Naruto always faintly felt that this girl named Karen may have the same violent genes as his mother. I say. Is this still an orphan of Kyuzugakure? No matter how you look at it, her relationship with his mother is too close. Naruto turned his eyes to his father, and his heart was not without malice, wondering whether this girl is his mother's illegitimate daughter. Naruto's strange eyes were completely seen by Watergate. Watergate, who was very impatient, really exploded at this moment. Without the original feeling of guilt for his son, Watergate directly punched Naruto's head. The huge force directly made Naruto's eyes become teary, and he looked at his mother for help. Shina Kushina saw Watergate suddenly punching her son's head, and was instantly unhappy. Just as she was about to say something, she was directly interrupted by her husband. I will go to the Hokage's office and communicate with the team leader of Kyuzugakure Ninja. If I can't make Karen our daughter, I won't come back. His words were sonorous, and directly let Shina Kushina see his determination. After seeing Watergate's serious expression, Shina Kushina was also very happy. Shina Kushina knew the current situation of Woodleaf. She also knew that if she brought a Kyuzugakure ninja like Karen to her house and became Hokage's adopted daughter, not only would she be opposed by Kyuzugakure ninja, but it was also likely that the group of old guys in Woodleaf would also come out to protest. However, Watergate still took this matter, and even said such harsh words. The matter of her son being punched was directly thrown to the back of her mind, and she even happily ran to Watergate's side and kissed Watergate. Naruto originally thought that he understood his mother enough to see his mother teach Watergate a lesson, but when he saw his mother kissing Watergate, he directly saw Shina Kushina kissing Watergate. He could only look at his mother with a sad face, as if he wanted to remind his mother that he was just abused. However, Shina Kushina directly ignored Naruto's gaze. Instead, she kindly pulled Karen to the second floor of the house, as if she was going to find a room for Karen to use as her bedroom. She even seemed to be preparing to take Karen to Woodleaf's commercial street to buy some clothes and daily necessities for Karen. In contrast, Naruto was simply picked up. In Nangongja's house, Sakura came to visit. Even Yabi came with her daughter, and they even carried a lot of gifts in their hands. Obviously, they had something to ask. Of course, Nangongja couldn't not give face to Yabuki, who took care of him a lot. He also kindly welcomed Sakura and Yabi into his house and prepared tea for them. The three of them sat in the living room of Nangongja's house. Sakura looked at Nangongja and hesitated for a long time, but she didn't say anything. Yabi saw her daughter dilly-dallying and said to Nangongzhe with a smile on her face, "Zhe is becoming more and more powerful. He is already a senior jonin in Woodleaf. Even Sakura's current guidance can't be compared to Zhe's. I also heard that Zhe often goes to the Hokage's office. It seems that he has a good relationship with Yondame Hokage, right?" Nangongzhe suddenly heard Yabuki's flattering conversation with him, and for a moment, he couldn't react. He could only quickly and humbly say to Yabi, "You flatter me, everyone has their own strengths and weaknesses. Kakashi is an excellent ninja, and his mastery of ninjutsu is also very profound. If I really have a life and death duel with Kakashi, I can't say that I can win against Kakashi." In Yabi's ears, Nangongzhe's humble words were naturally spoken by Nangongzhe. However, Nangongzhe knew that if he really had a life and death duel with Kakashi, although the possibility of winning was very high, he still had some scruples about Kakashi. In Nangongzhe's heart, he faintly felt that Kakashi had actually been holding back. "Actually, this time I came with Sakura to ask you something. I just don't know if you have time. After all, Hokage-sama should have given you a task, right?" Yabi knew that if she and Nangongzhe continued to flatter and be humble, who knows when they would end. Taking advantage of her relatively close relationship with Nangongzhe, Yabi also directly tested Nangongzhe. When Yabi's words came out, Nangongzhe's face also became serious, and he seemed to be a little unhappy as he said to Yabi, "Yabuki, you're wrong. Although my strength has indeed improved a little over the years, I'm still the Yabuki that you took care of when I first came to Woodleaf. No matter what it is, Yabuki can directly tell me, as long as I can do it, I will naturally not refuse." After hearing Nangongzhe's words, Yabi also relaxed and said to Nangongzhe, "Sakura was lucky during the Chunin exam and entered the third round. I think that since Sakura can enter the final round of the Chunin exam at this age, naturally, she can't give up such an opportunity. There is still some time before the third round of the Chunin exam. I was wondering if you could spare some time to guide Sakura and give her a little more possibility of becoming a Chunin." Chapter 291. Hearing Yachue's words, Nangongzhe also understood what she meant. All parents in the world are worried about their children. Originally, Yachue and Nangongzhe had a sibling relationship, and they had never asked each other for help for their own matters. This has a lot to do with the character of Nangongzhe and Yachue. Nangongzhe himself is a very stubborn person. When he encounters trouble, he will first think about how to solve it with his own efforts. Although Yachue was a woman, and she wasn't a ninja, she relied on her own strength to support her own clothing store in Konoha, and she has always been very strong. But such a woman is now begging him for her daughter. Although Nangongzhe has a variety of troubles to solve during this time because of Watergate, most of the things are on the right track, and Nangongzhe doesn't need to participate more. Dealing with Danzo is a big matter, although there is a certain amount of evidence, it is not enough to directly overthrow Danzo. Unless Danzo is caught in the act, there is no threat to Danzo at all. Originally, Danzo and the Hokage clan have reached the point where they have not openly fallen out with each other. The three generations have a lot of information about Danzo, but they still let Danzo live well. This also proves that it is difficult to overthrow Danzo. Therefore, for Nangongzhe, there is still a certain amount of leisure time. It is not difficult for him to agree to Yachue's request to guide Sakura. As long as he talks to Watergate, he believes that Watergate will not refuse such a request. After thinking about these things, Nangongzhe also had a little smile on his face and said to Yachue, "I thought it was something, isn't it just to guide Sakura? I watched Sakura grow up. For me, Sakura is no different from my own nephew. Kakashi, because of his relationship with the Uchiha clan, will definitely train Sasuke, and Naruto, his father, will take care of him. Only Sakura has no one to help guide her. I naturally have to take this responsibility. We are all ninjas of Team 7, we can't let others look down on our Sakura, right? Nangong's words directly placed Xiaoying in the same position as his family. These words naturally made Ye feel exceptionally comfortable when she heard them. Xiaoying also suppressed the obvious anxiety on her face and relaxed a little. She was not worried at all. She was worried that Nangong's family would be in the same position as Xiaoying. Zhe is right, we can't let others look down on our Sakura. Then I will leave Sakura's matter to you. I will go pack up Sakura's luggage and send it back later. During this time, Sakura, you don't have to come back. Just stay at your uncle Nangong's house and let your uncle Nangong teach you well. Ye Chui followed Nangong's words and said such words to her daughter. Hearing her mother actually let her live directly in Nangong's house, Sakura, as a girl who already understood some differences between men and women, was actually somewhat conflicted, but in order to get closer to Naruto and Sasuke, Sakura also forcibly cleaned up her mind. After all, Nangongja was her uncle, and it was understandable for her to live in her uncle's house for a while, right? So Sakura also nodded and agreed with her mother's statement. Nangongja knew that this matter had been settled. After watching Ye Chui leave his house, Nangongja also began to think about how he wanted Sakura to grow her strength during this time. Although Nangongja also knew about Sakura's training when he was in the Wave Country, he still had a certain understanding of Sakura's overall quality. But after all, it was not an actual fight, so Nangongja actually had some doubts about Sakura's specific situation. There was no way. He could only walk in front of Sakura and said to Sakura, "Sakura, although I know that Yabuki must have given you a lot of expectations for the Chunin exam, expectations are also an unbearable pressure, making it impossible for a person to exert their full strength. The Chunin exam is not a test of a person's combat ability, but a person's overall quality as a ninja. As long as you show the qualities a ninja should have when fighting against the opponent, even if you lose in the first round, you can still become a Chunin in the end. So, I hope you can put all the distracting thoughts aside. Carefully consider where your advantages are and where you can make full use of your advantages. Don't just pursue improving your strength and live to learn more powerful ninjutsu. Do you understand what I mean?" Nangongja's words were very honest, because in fact, it was only a short period of time before the Chunin exam. It was very difficult to make Sakura have a qualitative leap in combat strength. What Nangongja can teach her is to make her fully aware of her advantages, so that she can fully show her qualities in the Chunin exam. Sakura herself was a smart child. When she heard Nangongja's words, she naturally understood what Nangongja meant. She sat on the wooden corridor on the side of Nangongja's courtyard, frowning slightly. It seemed that she was carefully analyzing where her advantages were. Nangongja also looked at Sakura's tangled appearance and didn't disturb her. Nangongja actually knew where Sakura's advantages were, but some things can only be remembered by oneself. If Nangongja opened his mouth to analyze Sakura because he wanted her to understand him as soon as possible, although it seems to be a good thing in the short term, it is not conducive to Sakura's future development. Time passed by little, the sun in the sky had now turned into the sunset. For nearly an afternoon, Sakura has been thinking about her performance in all the battles she has been fighting. Whether it was the sound of Nangongja's footsteps or the passage of time, Sakura didn't care about it in her heart. Just when the sun was about to completely set, a beam of light passed through the burning clouds in the sky and shone on Sakura's face. With a little gentle sunlight, it was like a key that unlocked the shackles of her future in front of Sakura. Sakura's thoughts returned to the time when she learned to climb trees under the guidance of Nangongja. At that time, she was able to learn how to climb trees quickly, even faster than Naruto and Sasuke. What did she rely on? Her control of chakra. You're tuning into the Unparalleled SwordWill YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.